you catch. It's not that hard, okay? All right, get the out of here.
I'm going to talk a lot about drills and fundamentals.
Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it.
On 93.5
Watch it.
and 107.5.
Boom, baby.
The Fan.
All right, here we go. It's Hydration Friday. You guys name it, I got it. You want Gatorade? Got it. Pedialyte? Got it. Water? Got it.
How we feeling?
Well, I'm a little stopped up. I feel better than yesterday.
Need a neti pot.
Did you do the allergy thing? Did you go over-the-counter action there?
I did. So I had to consult with Mottman to make sure that none of it interacts with my cardiac cocktail. And he's like, yeah, man, take whatever you have to because we're doing the mini. I'm like, I know. So we're good to go. So I did. I've never had allergies, but I guess it's really bad this year, like I said yesterday. So no holding back. No turning back now, Kev. No turning back.
You have your credential on you.
I do. I went and picked those up yesterday, so I'm getting that all lined up. Starting to get real, brother.
It is. Good Friday morning to you. Cinco de Mayo. Should we take tequila shots?
Oh, bring it on.
That'll clear it out, right?
1,000%.
Yeah,
that and a mint julep, and you'll be ready to be with the lead pack tomorrow.
Mayonnaise in the fridge still, so mayo and tequila?
I think the only thing to make a mint julep better would be mayo.
What was that you just did, Mark?
Oh, boom.
No thanks. I like lime. I like tequila. Mayo, zero chance.
It is the Oaks Day down at Churchill Downs. It looks like the weather's going to be outstanding for the Derby here coming up. We will chat with Caleb Keller in the 9 o'clock hour. He's going to get us set from a betting standpoint as we head into tomorrow. I feel like it keeps on getting later and later. I saw the post times like 6:50 something.
Is it really?
Yeah, I used to remember being like kind of right at 6.
What's the problem for the delay? Is it a weather issue, or are they waiting for the crew to show up?
I saw that my horse practical move had to be scratched due to an elevated temperature. Can we not just, was he hungover? Can we not just get some Tylenol in the guy?
Surely you realize that they were strictly being practical with that move. So it wasn't necessarily, they had to do it. They're just being practical.
It's not one of your better ones here to start this Friday. Kevin Bowen.
No, wait. According to you, I've never had a good one.
And Mark Dykton here for really the third straight day. A very nice looking day to end the week here in Indianapolis, of course. May activities really get underway tomorrow with the mini marathon. The weather continues to look super promising on that end. Colts draft pick Josh Downs going to join us here at 8 o'clock. That is the third-round pick out of North Carolina. Chris Ballard called his draft call one of the best he's really ever had. The emotion for Josh Downs was pretty evident, I think, for any of you that watched the With the Next Pick series last night. Just very emotional, Josh Downs in that moment, and certainly one that was pretty motivated by how far he fell in the draft. We'll have Larra Overton on at 8:30 to talk more about the With the Next Pick series. And a little bit of everything here as we round out the week. All three of the 4 series, I guess, in the NBA tied at 1-1 as we shift to the second venues for these series.
The Golden State Laker Game 2 kind of went like you expected, didn't it?
Very similar to Celtics-Sixers Game 2. Of that home team loses Game 1. And honestly, if you look at the final score of Lakers-Warriors, you might wake up and be like, wow, 27 points. Lakers actually were up 7 at the end of 1. And then Golden State outscored L.A. by, I think it was 18 and 19 in the second and third quarters. Klay Thompson with 8 threes in that one. So that series is 1-1. The only series that is 2-0 we'll get tonight. It'll be Game 3 in Phoenix with the Nuggets looking to go up 3-0 there. The early game tonight, it's a 7:30 tip from Philly. That'll be Boston and Philly tied at 1. Or is it Heat Knicks tonight? I could be totally off on that.
I think Heat Knicks is on. I think it's a double. There's 2 games.
No, it is Boston Philly.
Yeah.
It's weird how they do this scheduling. It's not I thought it would just be we have 4 series left. We do 2 on one night, 2 on the other night. And we just rotate those.
That is one of my biggest pet peeves of the NBA playoff schedules. Just you never know when games
doesn't
are
make
on.
sense, you know? Yeah. Celtics favored by 1.5 on the road. Suns favored by 4.5 at home tonight. And Giannis is looking for a new head coach.
How about that? Did that surprise you? I mean, if I'm, which way do you go there? Is he a coach that got them a title, or is he a coach that got beat in the first round? He's both, obviously. But which one was the anomaly? That's the better way of asking it. Which one's the anomaly?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by it. Am I imagining things, or was it like a couple of years ago where it was like, oh yeah, if the Bucks lose in round 1, Budenholzer's out?
I think it was the year they won it, right?
Was it the year that they won it? Because I thought to myself for a second, it might have been the same cycle where either the Pacers hired Bjorkgren or Carlisle. I forget which year matches up, but I thought to myself, wait a minute, if Budenholzer's about to get fired, like he did a decent job in Atlanta, why not hire him here?
I mean, he'll have a job again next year if he wants it, right? Somewhere. I don't know how many jobs.
No professional sports
up,
league rotates more than NBA coaches.
And no professional sports league keeps with, maybe the NFL. Like,
I think we're done with the NFL keeping it in the family.
Just recycles all the time? Yeah, you might be right.
Or at least that's quieted down a whole lot.
The NBA, it is, I mean, how many places did give me Lenny Wilkins or Don Nelson? Which one do you want to look up here? We'll go with, or Larry Brown.
I feel like Wilkins is like the gold standard, but Larry Brown and Don Nelson are probably up there as well.
Okay, we'll go with Lenny Wilkins. How many places has Lenny Wilkins coached? As a coach, Lenny Wilkins. Sonics, Blazers, back to the Sonics, Cavs, Hawks, Raptors, Knicks. Don Nelson. Don Nelson's like way up there, right? Hasn't he coached everywhere, or is he just Golden State? And Dallas, did he have Dallas too?
Yeah, definitely Dallas.
Don Nelson as a coach. Bucks, Warriors, Knicks, Mavericks, Warriors. Okay. But still, I mean, that's like my resume. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of know at some point, you're like, it's probably it after this. I'm probably good to go.
And, I know there's been some ownership changes within the Bucks organization, and obviously you fall into a little bit of a trap of like, man, that end was so poorly. Giannis, I think, has an extension due later this offseason. You're certainly thinking about him and how he is the person that matters the most in the organization, not Mike Budenholzer, but we'll see how that goes. Well, do we have, is Houston got Ime Udoka? Is that the only other opening?
I think that's right.
For some reason, I feel like there was one more that I'm missing.
Do you have sinus congestion at all?
Currently?
Am I the only one that does?
I feel like mine, I certainly have allergies, but I don't think mine's to the degree that you're feeling it right now.
Well, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I am curious.
Easy now with.
Sorry.
Derby
some respect.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know I'm.
Insert another Jake Query beautiful analogy here.
I know I'm pulling a Jake by sticking with something longer than I should. How's that? But I've never really had allergies. Are they really bad this year? Like I saw Matthew, our friend from Maine, is here for the mini, sent a tweet saying, oh my gosh, my sinus is completely locked up once I got to Indiana. So is it, but Matthew's not from here, so maybe he's just not used to it. I've never really had allergies, so that's why I'm trying to navigate whether I have a head cold.
Might have been pretty normal.
I did test negative, by the way. What's that?
For COVID or the PEDs?
For COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So will you run? Are you running with Matthew tomorrow? Will you run in a pack? How's this going to work?
I'm running with Mottman, and we have both said to each other, this will probably not be our finest hour because we're both slightly under the weather. So we're just going to go through the motions, man. We're just going to, you know what I mean? Have you ever done the mini?
No.
The mini marathon, Kevin, is fascinating because two things about it that are really interesting. The first is you'll be running along, and you look over and you see somebody that's got a funny shirt or funny outfit or whatever. Okay, and then you look, your eyes stray to the left or whatever, and you come back and you're like, where'd they go? And just gone. Because there's so many people, like, it's amazing. Like, literally every person is like a Where's Waldo experiment. But then the other thing, too, is you'll be running along, and your calves will start to cramp or something will happen, and, like, a 90-year-old person goes flying past you, or a person with a leg brace, or somebody pushing a stroller with, a disabled person, and you're like, okay, let's go. The other thing, too, is like when you're on the interstate and you take a road trip and you have road friends, when you see the guy, you're on the road and you see the guy in the green pickup truck and you're riding alongside him for 5 miles and then you get gas and da-da-da, and then 2 hours later you're like, oh, it's a green truck buddy again. The same thing happens with the Mini. Like you're running and then you walk, then you run, then you walk, whatever, and you get to the track and you're like, wait a minute, like that person who's been walking the whole way is still at the same pace as I. So it's fascinating. But it is a ton of fun. I love doing it. But my days of getting out there and running and running and running and running for 13 straight miles and not stopping to walk or pet dogs or high-five people are long over. I mean, I'm just out there to move 13 miles and get it over with.
I remember it used to be on a weekday, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember my Aunt Kathy, she taught an IPS for 30 years. She would bring her students out on the course, and my dad and my uncle would run by, and that would be like their favorite moment of the Mini, seeing those kids and they're all clapping.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
I don't remember that. But
that had to have been a longer time ago.
The first year I did it would have been probably 2009.
Okay,
08.
yeah, this would have been. I mean, I would have been really young.
I mean, in the early to mid 80s, they ended at the track.
Right
now the track's halfway through, but it's great. The thing that I love most about it, you asked me this yesterday, I realized, but when you go. So the route, for those that are unfamiliar, you start downtown on Washington Street. You take it around past the zoo, and then you snake around to, I guess it's Michigan, and you take that out. No, it's
New York?
No, I'm sorry, it's 10th. You take it out towards 10th. You take that out, and then you go north on Holt Road, and you end up on Main Street and Speedway. You go around the track. Then you take 16th out, and eventually you drop back down to 10th. But the crowd, like the people that live along 10th Street in particular, it's great. I mean, they're all out on their front porch drinking coffee, waving. Little kids are clapping, or they've got signs. I mean, the whole deal. But everybody, literally, the thing I love about the Mini Marathon is it is one event that you go to where people's backgrounds don't matter, people's race doesn't matter, people's weight doesn't matter, nothing. It is literally collectively a bunch of people just cheering for each other and pushing each other to a common accomplishment. And that's what's great about it. That's what I absolutely love about it. That said, I'm 50, so this might be the last one.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kidding, but this will be my either
get through the finish line and just lay on the ground and
Gosh,
I'm done. I'm retired.
I need the vitamin C graduation song a few days earlier.
That's right.
We were playing.
No, I mean I'll do it again next year. I probably am certain of that. But it would be my 14th or 15th, something like that.
Pulling for you. I will be on the sidelines.
Are you going?
No, but from afar.
Well, thanks.
I'm just saying.
You'll be there with your
spirit. I'll be cheering for you.
You can have your tequila and mayo just sitting there.
This one's for Jake. Whoa. That was a bad decision.
You catch any of the with the next pick from the Colts last night?
I actually did not see the one last night. I you know what? I take that back. I saw excerpts of it. I didn't sit down and watch all the way through, but I saw excerpts of it.
We'll have Larra Overton on at 8:30 to talk more about it. Again, give me all the behind-the-scenes content possible. Just a huge fan. I think it's great that the Colts even are allowed to do this and attempt to do it. I think it's very well done. There are a couple things that I found pretty interesting within that. If for those watching it, Morocco Brown, who's basically third in line under Chris Ballard, Ed Dodds, and then him. He's a guy that has all the, cool sayings and really was kind of one of the big spearheaders in Anthony Richardson. He made the analogy of you don't have to get all of the juice out of Anthony Richardson in terms of kind of squeezing that talent. And I think that's a point that I've been trying to make here over the past week of when you talk about Richardson and where he's at right now as a thrower, again, you don't need to get him to this 70% guy, this Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees type of accuracy, methodically moving his way down the field. His big play ability allows you to kind of not be so reliant on maybe his consistency as a thrower. Certainly, those are areas that you want to get to, but even if he doesn't reach that level, he can still be an extremely impactful player for you. Richardson, of course, in town. He got in town yesterday. The Colts will have their rookie minicamp. I'll be up there for practice later this afternoon.
Richardson was worried that he forgot to pack his Crocs.
Yeah, he's a big Crocs guy.
Considering he's a Gator, that's interesting.
Big Crocs guy, big candy guy. Anthony Richardson. So the Colts will have their first rookie minicamp practice here in a little bit. The other thing that I thought was interesting from last night, Jim Bob Cooter, their offensive coordinator, they showed him giving his thoughts on Richardson in the draft room. And they do this. They bring in respective coaches, typically the coordinator or the position coach of that player. Okay, what did you see on film? How are we going to match up the scouting of him to what you guys believe in as a coaching staff? And the thing that I found interesting from Jim Bob was he always would preface his comments by in the right environment, which I believe we're building here, I think he's got a real chance to be extremely successful if we do this the right way. He kept on throwing those caveats in there of it can't stop just with the draft pick. We've got to make sure that we always have that sole focus of don't force any offensive system upon this kid, cater to his strengths. And I mentioned it on yesterday's show, Jake. At some point, Buffalo looked at it and said, all right, Josh Allen's coming along. We need to go get him Stephon Diggs. At some point, Jalen Hurts was making really good strides, and Philadelphia said, we need to go get A.J. Brown. At some point, the Colts just can't be saying Anthony Richardson's going to cure it all. You've got to go out there and continue to support that quarterback. And I think that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit when you think post-Peyton Manning draft, post-Andrew Luck draft. After the Manning draft, Jake, as you know full well, it was Edgerrin that next year. Then it was, Reggie 2 years later and Dwight Freeney 3 years after that. You don't go on a run without those guys.
Here's the
For
other
the Colts, you drafted absolutely no one in the drafts immediately after Andrew Luck. So I thought it was important by Jim Bob to continue to say those things because there is a whole lot of development needed. You've got to make sure that the atmosphere and the environment around Anthony Richardson is comfortable, but yet continues to build. Because if you don't do that, you're just not going to reach any sort of potential high-level tap into the 4 to 5 years. We've made this draft pick thinking about the future, not the present.
To me, the number one thing that you need for Anthony Richardson or any young quarterback is continuity of system. And the benefit of a Shane Steichen is that he has shown, as we talked about leading into the draft, a versatility of system. He can come up with an offense that's catered to Justin Herbert. He can come up with an offense that's catered to Jalen Hurts. He can come up with an offense that, et cetera, right? And so that means for Shane Steichen, he can make adjustments to Richardson as opposed to Richardson making adjustments to him. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to compare Jeff George and Peyton Manning. They're two totally different quarterbacks. But they are decent precedent for this franchise by which to compare because they were both the number one overall selection in the draft. And one of them, from the time he was drafted, had the same offensive coordinator from day one and the same system every day.
Right.
The other one had a different offensive coordinator every single year and was asked to learn 4 different offenses in 5 years or whatever it was, and it was like, okay, what are we doing here? I think that's critical in the development of a young quarterback, and that is a huge advantage in Indianapolis for Anthony Richardson, theoretically.
Even Luck went through a couple offensive coordinators throughout his career. When you look at Bruce Arians, and obviously that was kind of out of your control with Arians taking the Arizona job, but Pep Hamilton and Rob Chudzinski. And that's the best attribute to hiring a guy like Shane Steichen is no matter what move you are making at quarterback, he's going to be in place as the play caller and as a guy that is going to be very open-minded, I think, to creating a system around Anthony Richardson. So stay tuned to our website later today, 1075thefan.com. We'll have more from up there at West 56th Street on Anthony Richardson's first time getting on an NFL practice field.
By the way, Alex Core, my friend Alex Core tells me Kevin Lowry and Dick Motta. Dick Motta is the perfect example of the coaching carousel, right? Bulls, Bullets, Mavericks, Kings, Mavericks, back to the Nugget, and then Nuggets. I mean, back then, man, in the late 80s and early 90s, it was just churning through the same 25 guys, right? Also, Kevin, somebody texted, said, you are correct. Up until the mid-90s, the mini marathon was run on Friday and finished at the track.
Friday of this week?
Yeah. So it would be today, for example.
Interesting. Aaron pointed out Nick Nurse got fired as well. Forgot about that. Raptors. Thank you, Aaron, for that. So, yeah, a couple of us NBA champion coaches right there. Nick Nurse and Mike Budenholzer are both getting the old
Would you rather coach in
scissors.
Toronto or Milwaukee?
Cities?
Uh-huh.
Oh, certainly Toronto.
Yeah,
But-
Toronto without question.
Well, the question is, though, the taxes.
Well,
We've talked about that. Like,
I would like to think there's enough commas and zeros in the old contract it wouldn't be too damaging.
do you get paid in American or Canadian dollars? Didn't we look that up once, Mark? Because what do we do on this program, Mark?
We educate and entertain. I
Thank
don't
you.
recall us educating and entertaining in that topic.
I thought it depended like where the event was, right? Because isn't that a big deal in like the playoffs?
I just think that would be a
of
nightmare. Yeah.
Who you play or where you play, I should say. Like depending on the playoff series you have, the amount of road games you have, that impacts. And that maybe that's for players.
that would
Maybe
be
it's different
such a
for
hassle,
coaches.
though.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Is TurboTax doing that for you?
Yeah, I mean, seriously. Yeah, I've got, I played in 41 different cities last year, and plus I have Canadian taxes and 41 games in Canada.
So is today like the Derby's carb day?
Yes.
So the Oaks is kind of it's just a party day?
So if you live in Louisville, the Derby's a huge deal. And there are certainly people that go to the Derby. And probably a lot of people that do both.
Oh, it's 100 and some thousand, right?
But if you live in Louisville, today is the day as a Louisville native that you go before all of the out-of-town tourists take over your complex.
So no one's working in Louisville today.
Zero chance.
Raptors players are paid in American currency, which means as the Canadian dollar drops, their paycheck goes a lot further.
What if they're Canadian?
I think they're part of an American basketball franchise or association, so
Okay.
they are paid in American dollars.
Good for them. Especially with that. I'm telling you, man, you go to Canada and that conversion rate, you take your Roots, you go to Roots, you can buy I redo my wardrobe. It's like everything's basically, it's like, well, this stuff's practically free. It's like it's like Kramer with the Japanese fellas, right?
Give me all the ketchup chips you can, sir. I'm an American.
Yeah. Basically 40% off everything. It's fabulous. Fantastic. We'll get you set up. Give me the rundown, Kevin, again on who all is on this morning, because I know Josh Downs, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Josh Downs coming up at 8 o'clock. Again, third-round pick for the Colts. Rookie minicamp began really late last night. Players started to get to Indianapolis. We should get an undrafted free agent list a little bit later today. So he's going to join us coming up at 8. Larra Overton at 8:30. Speaking of the Derby, that's a Louisville product. And Larra Overton, New Albany girl. And then 9:15, is that right, Mark? I know the time's a little bit odd for Caleb Keller. He is with FanDuel TV.
Yes.
And he will give us some Derby action coming up here. I would assume, and this is me knowing absolutely nothing about the Kentucky Derby, outside of, I act like I do when I lay a bet down, I'd assume that good weather would mean fast track. Is that correct? We aren't betting on mudders. Is that right?
Correct.
Is that the right term?
You know what they say about mudders. His mudder was a mudder. Yes.
Mutter was a mutter?
Huh?
Never. Forget it.
That horse is a mudder. His mudder was a mudder, too. There are certain horses, Kevin, as you know. I mean, that's why it's called a mudder. There are certain horses that are it's their advantage if it's a sloppy track or a track with, the worst would be if it rained like all day today and then you run tomorrow and it's still some mud in there and you're kind of sinking into the track itself. The strength necessary, advantage to some horses. But yes, a condition like this, as I understand it, I'm not some total expert, but it would be a faster run. Now, it is time for me once again, and I do this each and every year, admittedly, but I still marvel over it. And I am kind of obsessed with this racehorse, so take it for what it's worth. But it is amazing to think that it will now have been 50 years since Secretariat ran the Kentucky Derby.
Today's the anniversary.
Today is exactly.
Uh-huh.
And no one has surpassed that time. Now.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, no one's surpassed Sham for second.
I think
it's the second fastest time ever in Derby history.
Is it really? Okay, I was going to say, because, I mean, Sham was a remarkable horse, as I've talked about, but had the misfortune of being in the same year as Secretariat. Now, it's not like with horses. I mean, you would assume, like, maybe even from a diet understanding or just different tactics, but it's not like technology necessarily, benefits a horse more so than 50. It's not like auto racing, but
clearly load management's at play with Practical Move and his scratch.
That's right.
Can we not get a Jordan Flu game from Practical Move here?
So, Secretariat, though, set the record in all 3 of the Triple Crown races, and I think I'd have to look. He may hold the record in all 3 of them.
The Belmont's the iconic picture, right?
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Because the Derby was a great race.
Correct. The Derby, Secretariat started towards the back. Matter of fact, and then actually in the Preakness, Secretariat again going into turn 1 was in last. And then, turned it up. The Belmont was the most unbelievable, and I get it. I get why people it's a horse, it's not athletes. I get it. But for lack of a better phrase, sports, the Belmont was one of the most unbelievable and impressive sports displays of dominance you will ever see. I mean, it is unreal. When Roddy Turcotte, when they were coming around turn 4, and Roddy Turcotte finally looked over his shoulder, I mean, you have the jockey riding on the horse and is like, where is everybody? And looks back, and he's 26 lengths in front, headed down the home stretch. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was the that would be the modern day Tyreek Hill peace sign, right? When Tyreek's at like the goal line and looking back at everybody else. That's what that scene was. So we'll do some Derby talk coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. I also saw, did you see Hunter Dickinson to Kansas, Jake?
Did you see the video?
Video was a bit awkward, to say the least.
I mean, here's the thing. So for those that are unfamiliar, Hunter Dickinson, good player, Michigan, enters the portal. Like 3 days ago, sends out the letter of like, I love Michigan and my heart's always there and I love my teammates, but please respect my decision to go into the portal. And then puts out this professionally produced video of him shooting in the gym, and the phone rings and he answers on his earbuds and iPod, whatever you call them, and it's like, and it's a friend of his saying, "You got the whole world waiting, man. When are you going to make your decision?" Really, the whole world's waiting. Really? Yeah, you're right. So then it shows him driving in a car talking about how surreal it is to get recruited again, and all these coaches are coming after me, and this feels like it's bigger than when I had to decide out of high school. And then the next video is him walking in to be embraced by Bill Self and saying he's going to play for Kansas. I'm telling you, Kevin, and I don't know, how big a recruit was Hunter Dickinson?
Huge, yeah. Huge
because
recruit. Out of DeMatha, Notre Dame was extremely high on him. I think he was a borderline 5-star. Because
I really think this. I think players, they love that process of being sought, and I get it. I would have been the same way at that age. I do understand that. But the transfer portal for a lot of these kids is about just being able to go through that process again. The feeling of being left out. FOLO, baby. Everybody else is getting recruited again, and everybody else is getting to put out videos and show me some love, North Carolina. Show me some love, Indiana. Where you at, Syracuse? And all these fat guys my age wearing their candy striped pants, frothing at the mouth, sending tweets, genuflecting over everything they do, telling them they're the funniest guy around. Welcome to 2023 college basketball.
I think welcome to Bloomington also. Kansas at Assembly Hall this year coming up. So Hunter Dickinson will still be playing Assembly Hall, and I think there might be a Purdue matchup.
Did he graduate from Michigan?
I forgot Purdue's in that loaded Maui field this year, or really one of the better Maui fields you're going to see.
I think he did, right? Is he a graduate transfer? Because if not, I can't imagine having 3/4 of my schoolwork completed as a college undergraduate with the potential of a degree from the University of Michigan and trading that for a degree from the University of Kansas. I mean, Michigan is one of the most elite academic institutions in the country, and Kansas is where I went because I couldn't get into Indiana or anywhere else.
It's not the Harvard of the Midwest?
I mean, it's a good state university, and they are very welcoming.
Donnie says, I'm working Ford Motor Company today in Louisville, so We're grinding a little bit down there. Donnie, shout out to you. Appreciate you tuning in. Again, it is a glorious-looking Friday to round out the week here. Josh Downs, Colts wideout at 8. Larra Overton, 8:30. Caleb Keller to talk Derby at 9:15. Kevin Aquare right here, 93.5, 107.5.
Dealer in Danville.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, a third NBA playoff series is tied at 1-1. The Warriors, after really kind of a sluggish first quarter, dominated the second, dominated the third last night, and the fourth quarter was anticlimactic to say the least. So that series now shifts to LA at 1-1. Both series in the East are at 1-1. We'll get Game 3 of Sixers and Celtics tonight. Boston a slight favorite on the road in that matchup. And then the second game of the night will be Phoenix trying to get their first win of that series as they are at home and down 2-0 to the Nuggets.
Bottom line for the Lakers, they can win games. They can't win games without Anthony Davis being dominant. They can. LeBron James can be their pace setter, but at this point in his career, and he's a great player, but if everything is going through LeBron, they have a less chance of winning, if that's the right word, than they do when Anthony Davis is dominant. An 11-point game for Anthony Davis, they're going to find themselves, regardless of what LeBron's doing on the short end, more often than not.
Going to go.
What was that, Mark?
Jumped the gun a little bit.
Don't even think the Reds played yesterday.
Jumped the gun.
Yeah, the Reds didn't even play.
I just have it handy always.
Wasn't necessary at all.
You know what? The Nationals yesterday beat the Cubs in Major League Baseball 4-3.
Cubs
For you Cubs,
stink at the
for you
moment.
Cubs
Walk
fans,
off that, Mark.
Reds ownership has a question for Cubs fans. Go
Are you
ahead.
going to abandon being a Reds fan? Are you going to abandon following this team?
No, I won't stop following you, Reds.
Should we be talking about the Cardinals in the same light we've talked about the White Sox this year?
I think so. We're getting to that point.
Cardinals get swept by the Angels. I think
wait.
they have the same exact record as the White Sox.
They're like cockroaches.
10-22.
Don't ever write them off. Don't ever write them off. Late field goal for Cute Fella. They beat the Royals 13-10 in the fourth quarter. It was a 42-yarder. Mariners over the Athletics 5-3. Sorry, Kev. Red Sox over the Blue Jays 11-5. It was the Twins over the White Sox 7-3. Rockies over the Brew Crew 9-6. And Atlanta doubles up Miami 6-3.
Again, we have the Run for the Roses coming up tomorrow. Post time, I think I saw 6:57. Forte, that is the favorite. We'll talk more with Caleb Keller from FanDuel TV coming up in the 9 o'clock hour about how to properly lay down some money there for the Derby. And then I am off to Colts rookie minicamp later today. Jake, insert your jokes here about watching practice. I must say, I actually am looking forward to seeing Anthony Richardson on an NFL field.
You know what you might be saying at some point during today?
Possession into the end zone.
Fair enough. I'm not going to make fun of you for that. There's an intrigue there for sure. You know, does it translate immediately to playing against flying action of an NFL defense? No, of course not. But
Certainly.
yeah, it'll give you an idea just to see, the zip on the football, the
Let's just
strength
say
of the arm.
past rookie minicamps have not had this sort of quarterback.
I'm not necessarily looking forward to, no offense, Kevin. Actually, you're not a violator of this. The training camp day 2, like Richardson throws 8-yard beautiful out to so-and-so, but nice defensive play by such and such. Okay.
I mean, the last
Try to keep that info in an article.
last Colts rookie minicamp that had this much hype for a quarterback had to be Andrew Luck, right?
Right, and if I'm thinking correctly, Mark, Luck might have done the rookie minicamp, but then Stanford was on that quarter system, so then he went back out there. So it's not even like he did the normal sort of
But still over a
spring.
decade.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. Sam Ellinger, Jacob Eason.
Didn't push the needle.
Insert your undrafted quarterbacks here. Not the same sort of excitement on that end. Again, Josh Downs, Colts third-round pick out of North Carolina. He joins us at 8 o'clock. It is a beautiful Friday here in Indy.
1075 The Fan.
15 minutes before the hour of 8 o'clock. Good morning to you on a Friday. Jake Query along with Kevin Bowen. Mark Dykton here as well. It's Kevin and Query on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Big weekend in sports ahead. The Derby tomorrow, the many tomorrow. And then, of course, Colts, speaking of many, rookie minicamp getting underway. Kevin will be out for that. I did want to mention real quick, Kevin, I don't know if this is troublesome or not. Mark, you might want to weigh in on this as well.
Sure.
Clearly, I'm a little congested, and I was asking if it was allergies.
Someone said for you to get nasal wash.
Nasal wash, okay. Jake, I went to the doctor yesterday. I sounded congested just as you do. Turns out mine was caused by a blocked eustachian tube due to excessive earwax.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice picture there.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, good
Could
to
that
know.
be it?
I mean, how often are you cleaning your ears?
By the way, I meant to tell you on Monday, Mark, I'm going to have a homemade candle for you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Have to light it and hold it over your ear?
No, it's
Pulls the
going
wax
to
out?
be
Oh,
homemade wax.
lovely.
Mottman multi-purpose. Can he help out in this area?
Yes, he is
Jake's
multi-purpose.
ear in here.
Mottman's multi-purpose, and let me tell you why. Last year during the mini, I didn't realize that I had bought like those socks at the expo, but they were compression socks. So we get to running, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my foot's falling asleep. We're like 2 miles into the run. But my foot's falling asleep.
Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Maybe you don't feel the pain then.
Well, you can't move. So we pull over, and he's like a riding mechanic. We pull over to the side on some street, and he's like, okay, now bend your foot against this stairwell. And then he actually gave me a very slight foot massage.
Oh. Well, that's very nice of him.
Jeez.
We
Talk about things you don't often see at the minute.
Pitch the socks. Well, you see a little of everything.
Well,
Got
glad
geared
you
back up.
pitched that and not something else.
Got back on the road. He was like my own little AAA roadside service. It's great.
Shorts better been covering everything up.
Okay.
Smooth
Is that Jake
transition.
Query? Whoa. What the heck's going on over there?
Yeah.
Quite the transition here. Yesterday, I thought really one of the better. You can just joke about last season, but I think if you're going to make a list of Colts players that played good football last season, I think this guy would be very high on that list, and he is now playing for the Cleveland Browns coming up this season. And really, it's part of a major movement that I don't know if the Colts love, but clearly they have really no other choice. But it's a movement in the secondary of youth. Rodney McLeod to the Cleveland Browns. Last year for the Colts, he played the third most defensive snaps. Again, I thought he was one of their better players. When the Nick Cross experiment did not go well, about a game-ish into the season, they benched Cross. They threw McLeod in the starting lineup. And it's a hell of a story. He's an undrafted free agent, played in the league for a decade, has had a great career, and now will continue it in Cleveland. Jake, I think the question the Colts have to ask themselves here over the next few weeks in deciding if they need to make any other roster moves. If you look in their secondary, they are incredibly young. I mean, it's Kenny Moore, maybe Julian Blackmon, and a bunch of just youthful dudes. And I think the question you have to ask yourself is, do you go out and try and get the Rodney McLeods, the one-year stopgaps? Or
They've had a history of that, right?
Certainly a safety. Or do you commit to playing the younger guys? And I think outside of corner and safety, you'd also point to right guard on the offensive line. And I think you have to have different philosophies at those spots. For me, Jake, if it's any position that is directly impacting Anthony Richardson, I want to see a veteran there. I want to support Anthony Richardson from day one. If it's positions that don't directly impact him, i.e. corner and safety, I'm content with the youth movement. I understand that part of it. I'm good with it. I don't think wins and losses are the end-all, be-all this season. But I think if you're talking about, particularly O-line, if you're talking about positions that could impact his health or his play, support. But for this season, considering the trajectory of where you're at as a franchise, what you've done from a draft pick standpoint of both safety and corner, you've invested a lot there. I'm good with them playing the young guys.
I think that from the corner and safety standpoint, Kevin, I am totally on board with and aware of and intrigued by the notion of a guy where you just go based on athleticism, especially at safety. But we've seen that experiment a lot,
Well, we saw last year with Nick Cross and it didn't work out.
And more often than not, TJ Green, right? I mean, what ends up happening more often than not, then you turn around to the guy that's a little bit older but a little bit wiser and go, okay, will you bail us out, please, for the rest of the year? And so you need some insurance there, right? I'm okay with having flyer athleticism in your defensive backfield, but you run a risk if the scales of your room are tipped grossly to the side of young raw athleticism versus experienced smart guy, then you're really starting to play with fire. I think you need a couple of guys in there to give you that insurance policy.
Again, this team is not a Booger McFarland trade away from being a Super Bowl team. So I just don't really see the need to go out and get another Roddy McLeod. Does that mean you might have growing pains in the secondary this season? Certainly. But I am content with that. The bigger issue I would have, and currently I think I do have with the offensive line, is you're pretty much running a back. Well, you are. I mean, you're running a back with the same starting five of last year, and you're saying that a new position coach and a new scheme change is going to kind of be the cure-all in that. That is where I would have some worry. But, again, I thought Roddy McLeod played great for the Colts last season.
I'm glad you said Booger McFarland, Kevin, because a lot of people, and there's no doubt that Bob Sanders was a tone setter for the Colts secondary that we have not seen since. But people talk about that Colts Super Bowl run and always pin it almost entirely and specifically defensively on Bob Sanders. And I'm telling you, you can put this on my tombstone. The one thing the hill that I am willing to stand on forever is that the trade for Booger McFarland, which shored up the middle for that defense, then facilitated for everything to move outward, and that's what enabled their defensive players to finally reach exactly what they needed to do under Dungy's defense. Booger McFarland was absolutely the key centerpiece move that put them over the top.
That's a lot of words on your gravestone. You've got that one. You've got the 46 words from the other one.
Have you not seen the design for my headstone?
That's probably more words than the term paper you turned in.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, right?
Well, there were more words there than I got points for that paper. Have you seen the Washington Monument?
Uh-huh.
Okay, very similar.
Oh, okay.
Oh, jeez.
When you're driving on 38th Street at Crown Hill, people are going to say, that guy must have been something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taller than the Chase Tower.
Well, he loves that booger fella. That's all I know. We went to go see what it says.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, along those lines, was it a reinsertion into the starting lineup of Rob Morris? Well, wasn't that something that kind of played into it a little bit?
Yeah, I forgot about Rob Morris because he's another one that, in that defense and the cover two defense,
they got a little bit more run heavy, I guess, from a defensive standpoint. And then when they faced Larry Johnson in round one, it was outstanding effort.
They just completely shut Larry Johnson down. Rob Morris is the guy that, because they played a cover two, he was oftentimes having to run to make up for, to go out of zone to make up for where somebody else had blown an assignment. And as a result of that, there are a lot of highlights of Rob Morris running somebody down where he looks like he's the one that was at fault, and he was not. He was masking for somebody else. I always liked Rob Morris. I thought he was a good dude.
The Colts had a BYU draft pick here this year. Blake Freeland, their offensive tackle. Speaking of draft picks, actually the pick right before Blake Freeland was Josh Downs, the wide receiver out of North Carolina, the third-round pick. Reggie Wayne, a huge fan of his. Chris Ballard said the Colts were trying to trade up for about 20, 30 minutes before they ended up taking Downs at 79 to get him. So he will be thrown into the fire today at rookie minicamp, and he joins us on the other side. Kevin Aquari right here on 93.5, 107.5.
Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
8 o'clock hour on a Friday. Outstanding weather to end the week. Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Colts, going to join us here in a few. Again, Jake, super, super emotional. Pretty darn fired up when the Colts took him at number 79. I think a little, definitely thought he would go earlier.
I love when a guy is drafted, and it's easy to say it, right off the emotion of the front, but a guy that's drafted that then feels like, hey, you are the team that took a shot at me. You're the team that was willing to put it out there when other teams had passed.
Yeah.
I love it.
Confident individual, and we will talk with him right now. Josh Downs joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Josh, I know it's been brief. How's Indy treating you so far?
Yes, sir. Good to be here. Got off the plane yesterday. Felt good to get back in Indianapolis since the combine, but I'm glad to be here.
All right, let's go back a week ago Friday. You're getting ready for round 2 and round 3. Judging by your reaction, I think you probably thought you'd be drafted a little bit earlier. But then your emotion once you got that call from the Colts. Chris Ballard called it one of the best draft calls he's ever received. How would you describe your feelings round 2 into round 3, and then once you got that call?
Yeah, so I was a little upset that I didn't go earlier. It was a lot of emotion early in the night. Thought I was going to go earlier from talks, just through the whole pre-draft. But when I got the call, I just felt blessed. I felt ecstatic. I was very happy. And I knew that I had a great organization that believed in me. So really I was ready to put it all on the line for them right then and there. And I'm ready to go to work today. And however many years I'm here.
Josh, a guy that will be coaching you, Reggie Wayne, is very high on you. I mean, he made no bones about that. I think he's a guy that probably pushed heavily for your draft. But Reggie Wayne, when he came out of the process, has talked about how Washington had told him, we're taking you. And then Washington comes up, and I can't remember, it was a receiver out of Clemson they took, and they passed on Reggie Wayne. I don't think he ever forgot that. Did you have teams that had told you or given you expectation that you would go before where you did?
With my agent telling me stuff that he heard from teams, and then just talking to teams in the process. I just felt like I was going to be picked before a lot of the other guys that went before me. So same type of vibe, and we talked about that already. So he went through a similar situation. He said I think he was the 5th or 6th one taken, and I was like 11th or 12th, so definitely similar situation, coming in with a chip on the shoulder. So no team owes to pick me, but I feel like I was better than a lot of guys they picked, so I'm just glad to show them.
I think you can do both of what I'm about to mention, but Josh Downs, for you personally, which play call gets you more juiced or makes you more confident? A long ball trying to get behind a defense and utilizing your speed, or utilizing your hands on a 3rd and 8 over the middle, need and grind out to extended drive play?
I like both, but I feel like when it's 3rd down and 8, 4th down and 8, and the coach is calling your number, I feel like that speaks volumes. I feel like they're putting trust in you to get a 4th or 3rd down, because that's the difference between a turnover on downs or a punt. So I feel like when a coach puts his faith in you to get that 1st down for the team, I take pride in that, and I feel like I got to get open for my team. I got to make this catch, and I got to keep the drive going. But I always love the home run ball too. So.
Yeah, you bring up a 4th down play. As a Notre Dame fan, I seem to recall a big touchdown you had on a 4th down this past fall against the Irish. Josh Downs, 3rd-round pick of the Colts. He joins us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. I want to go back to Reggie Wayne, if you don't mind, and just what that interaction was like at the Combine with him. What do you remember about what Reggie was saying to you on the field during your positional work?
I remember, TJ Huzmanzada, I was working with him during pre-draft, and he knows Reggie Wayne too, because he's a great receiver as well. So he was just talking to him, telling me that he thinks you're a real good player. And then I remember after the on-field session, TJ Huzmanzada went up to Coach Reggie Wayne and was like, "Who's the best receiver out there?" And he pointed at me and said, "No question." So after that, I did my pro day, and then Coach Wayne wanted to have a Zoom with me, and he told me he needed me on his squad. So from then on out, I knew he believed in me. So when I got that call from Coach Mr. Ballard, I knew it was time to go because Coach Reggie Wayne stood on that table for me. He vouched for me, so now it's time to make him right.
Now, obviously, Michael Pittman is the wearer of number 11 here in Indianapolis. Have you given thought to a jersey number here at the next level?
Yeah, I'm gonna wear number 1.
Ooh. Any reason behind that? I guess the similarity between 11 and 1, maybe.
Well, I was gonna switch my number going into my junior year, and I was thinking like 1 or 7, but then I just stuck with 11. So when I saw that 1 was available, because Paris Campbell left, I jumped right on it, and I said I'll be number 1. So I feel like that's an honor. It's a big opportunity, and I had to take it.
You know, one of the things I would think, Josh, that would be a challenge going from college to the NFL is simply separation, right? I mean, the window is so much shorter at the professional level, and I would imagine that some of that can be made up by the precision of route running. How does one go about becoming a precise route runner other than the obvious answer, which is just repetition? But what is it? What separates Jerry Rice from another receiver in making one an elite route runner?
Yeah. So I just say, like, first, you just got to have a lot of God-given talent, of course, but then also, like you said, repetition, and then just taking details that you see on film and bringing it to the field, and then also just working on your breaks each and every day, working on different movements, inside routes, hesitations, stutters, just things to throw off the DB, and then really just crafting. So route running it's your job as a receiver besides catching the ball. So really there's the one thing that should be on your mind when you're running the route is get open, unless you're a decoy, and then it's get your teammate open. But I feel like route running is just it's a natural thing, and also just something you got to craft at each and every day to get better at. And, yeah. You
know, when I was in St. Louis, Josh Downs is our guest, by the way, the Colts rookie wide receiver out of North Carolina. When I worked in St. Louis many moons ago, this shows, Josh, that I'm old. I covered your uncle, Dre Bly, who was a really good corner out of North Carolina and had a good, long career in the NFL. Two things I remember about him. Number one, I've never seen him other than on a field wear shoes. He wore slides every single day, like constantly. So I don't even know if he owns shoes. But once he put the cleats on, he was a really good lockdown corner. And I'm curious, not knowing how close your relationship is with him, but having a father that played in the league, having an uncle that was a defensive guy in the league, does that give you opportunity to talk to, in particular, your uncle about what the vantage point is from a corner and what they are expecting out of you as a receiver that gives you advantage then to be able to get into the mind of the defender? Yeah, so, my uncle, I've known him since before I was born, so me and him are very close. He's really related to me, too. People always have that question, are y'all actually related? Like, yeah, he's actually my real uncle, but I'd say, helping me be a better receiver because he tells me the tells that DBs look for, that he looked for, like raising your pass or slowing down a little bit. And basically he just tells me stuff he sees in my routes, what I need to keep doing, keeping my pass keep the same speed a lot of the times. Hesitations are good at times, but sometimes you just got to go. Having him, it's definitely helped me a lot. Just to kind of feel what a DB thinks because he was an all-pro corner. He went to the Pro Bowl, so there's not really much more you can do besides get a gold jacket. So having him in my corner has definitely helped me on the college level. He's corrected me a lot. He's told me I was a good player, but he's always there to tell me what I can do to get better. So having him and my father helps me a lot because they've been there and done it, and they've seen greats do it.
Josh Downs, wearing number 1 for the Colts, rookie minicamp, first practice coming up a little bit later today. Josh, what do you know, or what did you know about Anthony Richardson, and what's been your first interaction with him like?
I knew Anthony Richardson was a crazy athletic freak with a crazy arm. So when I got drafted by the Colts, he texted me right away, and he said he was ready to get to work. So last night we went out in the parking lot. We just threw some, just chopped it up for about 30 minutes. Caught some balls from him, just got a feel of how his arm is. He got a real strong arm, type spiral. So I'm excited to get out there on the field with him tomorrow. I know he's a real hard worker, similar to me, and I feel like we're going to make a good connection. Now, several people have said that your nickname, and maybe this was in college, Josh First Downs. I mean, that seems obvious. I kind of like Josh Third Downs,
Because I like receivers that are third down where you know that like we talked about on a 3rd and 8, you're like, we're good because we got Josh Downs, right? So if you had your pick, would you rather be Josh first downs or Josh third downs?
I'll leave that up to the fans, I guess, and y'all. I don't really have a preference, so I ain't never thought about the third downs thing. But nah,
I guess if you can make a catch on 3rd down, you're creating first downs, so that would
facts.
lead to that, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way, what happened to North Carolina basketball last year? What was going on there? Do we know?
See, I don't really know. I mean, I don't really know too much about that. I watched them, but I guess it was just a down year. Everybody has those times, but I got some friends on that team, so I can't say anything bad about it.
Look, Carolina basketball's, I mean, they're great, right? I just, around here, I think people can relate to it because Indiana kind of had the same thing, and then Purdue in the tournament. So, you know that you're coming to a place that has a reverence for college basketball like Carolina, but then the Colts have kind of taken that torch, right? So there's a lot of expectation there. Do you feel that pressure when you come in?
No, not really. I mean, I just feel like I just got to go to work, be the best player I can be, and then just do whatever I'm meant to do. Don't feel much pressure at all. I mean, I feel like I'm going to put in the work every single day, and then it's going to take care of itself.
Josh, last one. Last Friday, remember I asked you about T.Y. Hilton on the Zoom. Obviously, just the connections there based off the franchise and size. Anybody you try to pattern your game after, or anybody you really try to lock in, watch film of?
Yeah, I used to watch a lot of like Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry when they was at LSU, and then even when they was earlier in their careers, and then watch a lot of Devontae Adams. I love how he plays. And then I've watched T.Y. Hilton, of course, too. And then Cooper Kupp. Just really a lot of the greats just to see what they do, see if it's similar to what I do, and then try to implement stuff from their game to mine.
Josh, one last one for me. I'm fascinated by this because in life in general, very few people can relate to being a professional athlete. I mean, you're in the top half a percentile, right? But we all have jobs. We all have things that we do. We all have levels in life where we move from one area to the next. And privately, we have our fears and our insecurities when we do that. And we assume that athletes do not. Can you take me through one area that you are a little bit, I'm not going to say intimidated. I know the easy answer is no, I'm not. I'm confident. That's why I'm here. I get that. But is there one area that you look at it and it seems surreal to you? Or one area where there is a natural discomfort that you are looking forward to feeling comfortable about and overcoming?
Yeah, I would just say, just joining a new team. Being a professional athlete. Of course, that's scary to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't get that. But yeah, everybody thinks it's a dream, and it is. But at the same time, it's a lot of expectations, and you got to handle that. You got to put in the work. And you got to go out there and perform. So I'd say just being a professional, being on a new team, moving to Indiana, it's a lot on my plate. But I'm glad for it. I love uncomfortable situations, so I feel like you grow in those situations. So get to mature here, get to grow here, get to learn from a Hall of Fame receiver, a great receiver, and just be a better player. So I'm excited.
His quarterback, rocking number 5, himself rocking number 1 yesterday out on the parking lot at West 56th Street. Today it'll be on their practice field for the first time in an NFL setting. Josh Downs with us. Josh, great stuff, man. Welcome to Indy. Good luck, and we'll be rooting for you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all. You have a good day.
That's Josh Downs right there on the Payless Liquors hotline.
Josh Touchdowns, by the way, is the other obvious possibility.
Chad Henry, Colts area scout, he threw out the human chain mover for Josh Downs. I like that one.
I mean, that's the thing.
He also called him a hiccup, and by that he meant he's so quick, you don't even know.
Hiccup?
Yeah. You don't even know what hit you, and then for a defensive player, they would need to go to the bench to get some water to try and get a handle on those hiccups.
I always just hold my breath to get rid of hiccups. You hold your breath, and then you swallow.
The girls scare you, maybe?
Yeah.
No, you know what you do if somebody else in the room has hiccups? You say to them, I'm going to give you $100 next time you hiccup. But you have to have if you actually have the money in front of you, nobody carries cash anymore. But you put the money down, you're like, there you go, it's yours if you hiccup in the next 30 seconds. They will not hiccup. Why are you staring at me?
I wouldn't make that wager, I don't think.
Well,
I
you've
would
got to
just
be
assume
confident.
it's not going to happen.
As soon as the person understands the pressure that a hiccup allows them to get $100, it's over. I'm telling you. Works like a charm.
Okay.
Josh Downs, the last 2 years at North Carolina, 195 catches. That is a huge, huge number. He also missed 2 games. I brought up that Notre Dame game. I'll never forget as a Notre Dame fan. That was a big game on Notre Dame's schedule this past year. Downs had missed the previous 2 games. And just, listening to, people and reading things on the North Carolina program, they were like, this is a huge injury for the program and his availability and all of that. And, Jake, I said it for weeks leading into the draft. The Colts needed to find this type of wideout. You need to complement the big dudes you've got in Pierce and Pittman. And I think this has Julian Edelman, Wes Welker type vibes to it. I think he is that sort of slot presence that this sounds so Mel Kiper-y, but think quick, not necessarily fast. Like just his ability to get in and out of those breaks, kind of that lateral stuff is more than his straight line speed. He's still fast.
What's different about him than Paris
laterally.
Campbell coming out of college?
I would say that, a little bit more lateral movement. I thought Campbell was more of kind of a straight line guy. And I think you have a little bit more of a fine-tuned route runner. I think if you look at Campbell at Ohio State, Jake, it was Urban Meyer's Percy Harvin role at Florida.
Right.
Whereas Downs is more of he's a wideout. He is a wide receiver, a great slot receiver. He also has some punt return history. And I do think that could be something he could be utilized with.
I think the Colts could use that, yes?
Yes, post Nyheim Hines. They could certainly use that.
I think punt return would be the hardest skill set to find effective in the NFL.
Sure.
It is such a weapon, and it is so hard to find. And kick return as well. But, just to find, I think, can you imagine? I don't see how. I would be terrified to be a punt returner. People ask what's the hardest thing to do in professional sports. Hit a Nolan Ryan fastball or a Clayton Kershaw curveball or, try to score in the NBA. Can you imagine? First off, as I mentioned before, all you have to do is watch when they bring people out of the crowd at halftime to try to field the punt machine. Your depth is so off on where the football is even going to land. But you've got guys coming at you full speed. And you've got, the hardest thing to me, Kevin, about fielding punts, quite honestly, would be determining whether or not it is a punt that you are going to try to return or you fair catch it. How do you know that? Just feel? You've got to glance, look up, glance. You got to keep your eye on the ball, but you got to see what's coming at you.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of feel. Obviously, split-second decision-making. I know this is not a game nor a memory that probably anyone wants to go back to, but speaking of punts and fielding punts properly, I think back to the Deflategate game, Jake. The Colts are in an AFC title game on the road in Foxborough. New England gets the ball to start the game, and the Colts get a 3-and-out to start that game. Can you think of a dream scenario? Boom, 3-and-out against Brady and the Patriots in the AFC title game in this, House of Horrors and all that. This is great. This is, ideal. And do you remember the name Josh Cribbs?
Oh, yeah.
Colts trot back Josh Cribbs to field that first punt. And, boy, a guy that I don't think he believed too much in the old fair catch. Josh Cribbs tries to field one. He muffs it, and the rest is history. Those moments in a game, gosh, so critical. But, yeah, Downs did it at North Carolina. Isaiah McKenzie, the Colts signed in free agency. Maybe he could be a potential punt returner, but post-Nyheim Hines, something that they need to tap into. How about him and Richardson throwing on the parking lot?
Yeah,
could they not have gone back to the fields?
Their key card's not ready yet?
Yeah,
the other's a better story, right?
Do they play Foursquare after that?
That's right. The other's a better story. Hey, let's just go through. Was it I picture it being like a Nerf football.
A vortex, maybe?
Yeah.
The whistle going?
Yeah. I think Richardson would, be pretty good at the vortex.
Oh, yeah.
The Nerf footballs, the original Nerf footballs, before they had the little plastic thingy on there, like you're talking about.
The whistle.
The original Nerf football. I can't be the only one. I want to know from people listening if I'm the only one that recalls this. The original Nerf football wasn't a true Nerf football until you got it totally soaked and then it dried. And then it was like just slightly hardened, but it was still soft, but it was perfect. And when you had a perfect Nerf football, it was like having your glove perfectly oiled and softened. I had a red and white Nerf football. There was even a chunk taken out of it. I don't remember like if a dog bit it or what.
How about when the chunks got out of it? You're like, man.
That usually happened after you got it soaked. It would start tearing up, or you.
Is this thing still going to fly well in the wind?
No, but the chunk though was like that was the sign of like it was like having a pair of jeans that were broken in. It was just perfect, right? But I'm telling you, like I think we even got to the point where we would soak them naturally, let it dry out to the perfect amount of time, just let it sit in the lab, the Nerf football. They were the best.
The lab, a.k.a. the backyard sun.
I have tried, that's right, that's exactly right. I've tried so many times, like, if I'm walking somewhere and I see, I mean, you don't see it much anymore, but like a sporting good or a toy store, to go in and find like the original Nerf. Those things were so awesome.
You going to play it against sports?
Yeah, I mean, man.
So what's the original to you? Because I had a purple. It was like a half and half. It was a purple and a green one is the one I had.
Oh, we did Vikings and Packers. That was good for you.
Oh, get out of here.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Gosh, are you going skull there?
No, never.
The original didn't have any of the
red and blue is kind of what I think of.
The size was different than like now. You can still get. It had no grooves on it, right?
Right.
It had painted. It was foam, but
painted
it had
laces.
Correct. It did have the little lace thing on it, but it was a closer size to an NFL football today than the Nerfs, the littler ones that you get now.
Mm-hmm. Greg was asking about Dallas Flowers as a punt returner. Yeah, he only had 3 punt returns last year, 3 for 13 yards. Kick returns was the big thing for Dallas Flowers last year. And Jake, I think you talked to a lot of people that have done the returns in the NFL. Kick returns and punt returns are very, very different in terms of how much time you have to anticipate, the type of ball that's coming at you, all of that. Kiki Kuti was really the main punt returner last year besides Hines. So I just think it's something that the Colts have got to look into. And again, Downs and Isaiah McKenzie have that history. And in some corner, Isaiah Rodgers, Dallas Flowers, somebody else will be in the mix on that end.
Everyone, I'm telling you, everybody who is listening to my voice that was born between 1970 and 1980 remembers exactly the color of their Nerf football. It's blazed in your mind. And in addition to that, probably the one area that's different for you guys than me, when I was a kid, no one played soccer, and so we never kicked the extra point. We occasionally, Josh Simrau's backyard had 2 bushes that kind of perfectly aligned as goalposts.
Yeah, we had 2 great trees in our backyard.
Yeah, see, but that other than that, you always either went for 2 or a touchdown was just 7. And every kid, while I'm on the nostalgic trip here, and people are driving in their car, I promise you there's at least one other person out there that's going to go, yep, he's right. Most boys my age, when learning multiplication tables in like 2nd grade, we all knew the 7s.
Oh, without question.
You're like 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I learned math via Reggie Miller box scores in the Indy Star, and my threes were also, and I guess field goals, but threes were also good for me because Reggie would hit threes, and I'd be like, oh, he had 3 last night. 3 times 3 is 9, and
I mean,
et cetera, et cetera.
Totally.
The worst would be you try to kick the extra points in my house, and they go like over the neighbor's fence. Like someone's got to go get that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck saying hi. Paulie tweeted out a picture. Yeah, orange on the top, blue on the bottom.
I'm telling you.
That's how I
Mine was red and white, but yes.
look at it. Larra Overton going to join us here in a few with the next pick. The Colts had I think it was like a 33-minute episode yesterday. Extremely well done. We'll talk with Larra about that.
That's the last one, right?
That is the last one, yeah, just 2 episodes. And I wonder, Larra's boss had you blocked on Twitter, Jake. Do you think Larra has you blocked? Should you check that before you have her on?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'll have to
I just want to make sure we clarify that before we bring Larra on. And then we'll talk some Derby coming up in the 9 o'clock hour.
We're good. Yep, no block. We're good.
Okay. All right. Did Dave, did he follow you back? Are you guys good on that front?
Let me see if he still follows me. What do you think of the odds that he under the pressure, followed me, and then immediately unfollowed.
Yeah, probably waited a few days. Did the ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend,
or he does the follow mute.
That's a good one, Mark. Morning check down time.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
True Warriors fashion last night. True Warrior, wasn't that Ron Artesta's album?
Yes, that was his record label.
127-100, Golden State wins. Not a close game at all, really. Starting about halftime, I guess, the Lakers did have a 7-point lead after one, but then the Warriors outscored them by 18 in the second, 19 in the third. Klay Thompson, 8 3-pointers, 30 points. So that series is 1-1. The other series out west is 2-0. It's the only series right now where the home team won both games. That would be Denver. They're looking to go 3-0 tonight. That will be the later tip of the two games. The first game is going to be 76ers and Celtics, a slight favorite for Boston. Joel Embiid back in Philly after winning the MVP. That series is 1-1. And then tomorrow we will get the Heat and the Knicks from Miami. That series is at 1-1. 3:30 tomorrow, Knicks and Heat. 8:30 tomorrow night, Lakers and Warriors.
Hey, Jake, yes, my friend got a poof. It was a cheap knockoff of the Nerf football. He got razzed pretty hard by us. Yeah.
Come on, Walter, go get your poof.
Feel bad for him, man. Cubs yesterday. Did you already list the Major League scores? You did not, right? Nationals 4-3 over your Cubs yesterday, Mark. Thanks.
That was a quick
Rockies
one, Mark.
9-6 over the Brewers. I can give you all the scores from yesterday. Braves over the Marlins. It was the Angels 11-7 over the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals, man, are struggling. They're on a 6-game skid. Detroit over the Mets 2-0. Cute fella 13-10 over the Royals. It was Minnesota 7-3 over the White Sox. Tampa, Boston, Seattle, all winners, and the Indianapolis Indians 5-2 over the Toledo Mud Hens.
Did you check to see if you were unblocked and or followed?
It appears that now I might be muted, but it appears as though I'm good on both.
Okay, Mark, can you imagine the ego hit right leading into the mini if that was still the case? Jake might finish.
I got a cramp again.
Bottom 5, and they
Bottom, come rub this one out of me.
Excuse me.
Phrasing. That didn't go well.
What are we doing here?
Man. Holy
I know we're headed to the week.
Oh my God.
Weekend here, Mark. But let's try to maintain a little bit. We're not even at the halfway mark. We haven't even seen the twin
The
pro
second I said
flags.
it, I'm like, that
of the
sounds pretty bad,
Unbelievable.
actually. That doesn't sound great.
Wow.
Can we clip that out for you, Mark? Is that how it can go?
Yeah.
It sounds bad.
Jake, I've got nothing else.
Yeah.
I honestly probably just need a break room visit.
I think we can use a break, yeah.
Wow.
Holy shnikes. Colts rookie Metacamp with the next pick talk. Larra Overton joins us next.
HR's on 3.
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So I believe we've sanitized the studio.
Boy, yeah, that was some soap in the mouth for Mark Dykton on that end.
What are you talking about?
Thank you to Josh Downs of the Colts. If you guys missed that, that will be up on the podcast. We'll continue the Colts conversation with our next guest, but I actually want to begin a little bit more of a hometown feel for Larra Overton. Larra, it is Derby week. You are a Louisville product, I guess New Albany, right, if I'm getting technical. What's like the ideal way to spend Derby weekend? Never done it. When I do attend, how should I go about things?
Oh, it's the best week of the year. You nailed it. Born and raised in New Albany, but a fanatical horse racing family. We not only would spend Derby week at Churchill, we spend the Friday after Thanksgiving with our entire family at Churchill Downs as well. So it's a multi-time of year kind of holiday or venture for us to get over to Churchill. The best way to do it is to double dip and get Oaks and Derby within the same weekend. 100% worth it. Friday, the Oaks is, of course, the fillies and the Run for the Lilies. But it's more of the locals' day, so
is
it's
this like carb day?
More casual. No, because it's like it's all racing. You could kind of say that but it is a full day of all the races, and it's just kind of in terms of stature, just maybe one step below, but almost the prestige. Derby's 1A. Oaks is 1B. So I would say go down, do both days, go over to Wagner's and get breakfast. That's where my dad is right now. So he would gladly escort you, welcome you along, goes, gets breakfast, and then, you're probably looking for your first julep vendor by about 11 a.m.
Is a julep good?
As my grandmother would say, the first one is terrible, the second one is better. By the time you get to the third, you just don't care anymore.
That's probably a good way to say it.
I love your grandma. That is
Larra,
awesome.
I've always assumed
That's
that
how I felt about the coffee and mayo.
It was awful.
First sip, horrific, but by the third, it was like drinking water.
Oh, it was so bad. I always assumed, Larra, that the Oaks was kind of the locals' day to embrace it all and set themselves up for the weekend before the out-of-towners and tourists arrived.
Absolutely, because oftentimes when you get to Saturday of the Derby, it becomes really such a social spectacle, and it's all about the celebrities and, what people are wearing. And there is, of course, attention on the race, but so many other things going on. It's a very much rub and elbow, see and be seen. Whereas I feel like Friday, the emphasis is truly on the locals who are there for the tradition and for the racing and all of that. Not to say I don't love the Derby just as much, but I think you get more of a well-rounded experience if you're able to really go and do both of the days. And, we have graduated from the point of doing the infield, guys. Spring for the box, do that. It's well worth it. And certainly do 2 days of it. It's truly just the best weekend. And last year we did it with my entire family. My baby niece turned 1 at the Derby. We are next level in terms of, Derby enthusiasm.
Well, the thing I've always appreciated, Larra, is that, I have a great, I think people know, passion and love for the Indianapolis 500 because what it meant to exactly what you're saying, what it meant to my childhood and my family and everything else. So when I watch the Derby, I watch it with a great respect for what it means to the people there because it is the Louisville variation thereof. I get it, different audience, but it's the tradition, it's the family traditions of what you do. It's the Wagners, it's all those things. So during my old Kentucky home, I get it. And I get it because I have something by which to relate to it.
And I would say as well, part of it is in Louisville, you don't have pro sports, right? College basketball and college football are the center of the world, aside from that first weekend in May when Louisville gets to be on the world stage. And I was always so proud to see that because in being a city that is smaller than Indianapolis, that doesn't have as many opportunities to host over the course of a calendar year, NFL games, NBA games, IndyCar racing, all of those things. I think that's another reason that you'd be really proud to see what they do for that week.
Which during the apex of the Indy 500 was exactly the situation here, right? Because you didn't have the Colts. The Pacers were like, even before the Pacers, right? Like in the 50s and 60s. And certainly in my childhood, up until the Colts arrived, the Pacers hadn't really arrived yet. So kind of the same thing. Larra, Larra Overton is our guest, by the way, from the Colts. What about the draft, if anything, surprised you?
I think you're always prepared for it to be unexpected. There's always going to be something kind of wild that unfolds. Not really any of the picks or the fact that Chris Ballard was able to accrue more picks by the end of the weekend. I think that just the biggest surprise was what happened at 3. And that was one of the things that you see in with the next pick is you're inside the draft room to kind of watch a little bit of how it felt when they were anticipating what was going to happen at the 3rd pick in the draft, whether someone was going to jump up and try to take another quarterback, or of course, I don't know that anyone could have predicted that it would be Houston jumping up to go back to back.
Larra Overton is with us. Obviously, she does a little bit of everything over there at West 56th Street. TV personality, producer, host, reporter, etc. Larra, with the Next Pick series, you and I had this conversation before. Just give me all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I think it's tremendous. Did you have a favorite moment when watching that final episode of whether it was a scout, whether it was a coach, whether it was a draft pick, a scene? What would you kind of point to as maybe one of your favorite moments from it?
Oh, my gosh. I think part of it was it's kind of twofold. I'm going to go being able to capture a draft pick there at the draft. Finally, we've never been able to do that, to actually have our first-round pick in Kansas City, have our crew there spending hours with Anthony and his family, make the trip, coming to Indy. That's something different. When we drafted Kwity Paye, when the Colts drafted Kwity Paye, he wasn't at the draft. That we were able to have a crew that traveled to meet him and come back. But in terms of getting that immediacy of the reaction and being there was something we had not been able to capitalize on. Really proud of the work that Kimberly Skoog and Colin Schrader did being there in Kansas City. They had a huge task on their shoulders, rose to the occasion. They were incredible. And then how do you just not love the pureness, the authenticity, the realness of Josh Downs? And that phone call with Chris Ballard and then Chad Henry, the area scout who advocated and wanted Josh Downs. And they felt very fortunate that he did fall to them where they were able to get him. And there's a moment where, oftentimes the scouts are going to say, give you the answer. Oh yeah, you advocate for your guy, but at the end of the day, it just matters that we're getting a good draft class, and they're all Colts, and it doesn't matter where they come from. Well, I sit down with Chad, who is just such a character in and of himself, and I said, and you hear this in the piece, I said, how much did you want Josh Downs? And he goes, a lot. I mean, there was just like no holding back on how invested he was in trying to make this guy a Colt. Those were a few of my favorite moments of this year's episode, this year's part 2, that I feel really proud of.
Okay, I'm going to ask the dumbest question, Larra, and I've asked probably really dumb questions to you over the years, but I'm going to ask a really dumb one here. I was thinking about this yesterday as I was watching, and I can't remember if it was the Richardson video of the phone call or Downs. It was one of those. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, wait a minute, so did the Colts have a crew that was with Anthony Richardson the whole time? And if so, wouldn't that have made it obvious to him where he was going? Or does every team, or is that a pool feed where the NFL is filming guys taking the phone call and then it's distributed to whichever team is the one making the call?
No, great question. So we had covered multiple pro days too in advance of the draft also. So we had covered our bases in a lot of areas, so we would be prepared for how this fell in a number of different scenarios. And then when it comes to the draft, the NFL, of course, has camera crews and NFL Films has crew stationed for each phone call, and then there is a bit of sharing that goes on.
Right.
They'll ask
So-
for some of ours and back and forth. Yes.
So the video that, I mean, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. But that was not shot like, it's not like the Colts sent a crew that was sitting right next to Anthony Richardson. It was like, all right, guys, go. And then he's like, well, wait a minute. The Colts have been sitting here next to me the whole time. Clearly, that's where I'm going. That is
So there are only certain areas that teams can be. So team productions are designated to certain areas. No team, no specific franchise could say, hey, we're going to go sit with, CJ Stroud while this is happening. Yeah, exactly. So that's a different area in which the teams have access to versus what the crews that are assigned to cover the draft for the league and what they have access to.
Again, Larra Overton is with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Larra, rookie minicamp begins later today. We had Josh Downs on just a little bit earlier. Obviously, Anthony Richardson, it'll be his first time on an NFL field. I think he speaks to the media tomorrow. Part of me would say no, just because you probably want to temper expectations with Anthony Richardson. But anything planned this weekend with the rookies? Like, would Richardson be mic'd up? Anything following him around? Or anything else, I guess, we should look forward to from a content standpoint?
I wouldn't say strictly Richardson. There will be content on all of the rookies because this is a significant class. I think this is probably the most anticipated draft that we covered from a with the next pick perspective. And we saw the hunger that there was, the appetite that there was, of course, for Anthony Richardson, but then Juju Brents and Josh Downs and all of these different guys. Certainly the excitement is there for Anthony, but we will certainly be able to put out some content that encompasses all of the weekend's events and, the guys getting in the building for the first time and doing all of that. So we will be sure to get some content to you guys over the course of the weekend with Anthony Richardson, but all of those significant draft picks of this class.
Okay, and then Oaks plus Derby, but no infield. How many infield derbies did you have in your career?
Never. I mean, I passed through it, but no, because when I was finally old, I guess I never went in college because we'd be in the middle of the outdoor track season. That would be the week. So this is always the weekend before conference championships. So I did not go until I was out of college and working and producing the morning show for WDRB, and we would do our morning show live for the 2 weeks ahead of the draft out there, or the draft, look at me, the 2 weeks ahead of the Derby, we would go live. So I first worked the Derby in that regard and then covered the Derby, did some red carpet interviews, and would go, I don't know, I've been to maybe 10 in terms of just enjoying, but always being able to ride the coattails of my parents and sit with them, which is really nice.
So the infield of the Derby, it's not the infield of the Indy 500, right? I realize in relation to sitting in the boxes it is, but it's not like
you don't see a horse, right?
You really don't. They've installed bigger screens and things now so that you might be able to some degree, but there's not a EDM concert occurring in the infield of the Derby, but it's more of just kind of a party than anything else.
But are people wearing, like, for some reason with the Indy 500, Larra, and I don't know when this came to be, but it became almost like, to me, I'm not going to say it's offensive, but it's almost like a mockery of patriotism. Like, you have these people that are like, I'm going to dress as much like, what Americana as I can and, like, wear cut-off jeans and tank tops. You don't see that at the Derby, though, right, in the infield?
It's a little, no, I would say it's not quite that, at least that I've experienced. It's it's definitely more like laid back, but there's still a preppiness.
That's what I figured. Okay.
A little more Southern flavor. Maybe you catch a little seersucker maybe out there and some sundresses and whatnot.
Yeah, I can go for that. That's cool.
I just got a text here. Infield of the Derby is hell in all caps.
Well, have you been in the infield here?
Well,
come on.
Yeah, it might be heaven for some people. Shaq
true.
This year in the infield at the 500. Larra, great work. Matt Wilkedine, Kevin Connors. I know I'm missing gobs and gobs of people over there that did outstanding work on that, and I know it's a whole long process with many departments involved. So congrats on that, and I'll see you in a bit.
Hey, and I know, it is. It's a huge lift for Colts Productions. Matt Wilkening is the absolute, brilliance of it all in terms of editing it and pulling it together. And, one of the things that we've been, you're flattered by is that since Dave Knickerbocker initiated with the next pick and started this 5 years ago, we've seen a lot of other teams do things similarly. I would say something that we do better than anybody else is how we expedite it, the quickness with which Matt is able to edit it and turn that around, and then also just the way that we feature the different personalities and the characters that we were able to showcase over this year, 2 episodes, which was about 50 minutes of total content in its entirety. So 2 different episodes rather than 3 or 4, but overall probably more access and actually more content than we've ever been able to do before.
Larra, have a great weekend.
Hey, see you tomorrow, or see you later today, right?
Yes, see you in a bit.
Local,
Larra Overton.
I'm telling you, local news sports people, which is what Matt Wilkinen was. He worked at Channel 13 for many years.
Extremely good at his job.
Local sports people, and by that I mean those that work as Larry did at Fox 59, Chris Hagan, Dave First when he was at 6, Brad Brown there now, Anthony at Channel 8, Rich and I when he was at 13, Matt Wilkinen, the Otis Jones at Channel 6, the photographers, and we always laughed, Kevin, on election nights, because on election nights, the news department, they'd bring in pizzas, and they're all like, oh my gosh, like, we are working so hard, the results aren't coming in until 9:30, and we've got them on the air at 11, and so let's bring in pizza for everybody and celebrate and pat everybody on the back, and the boss is here to make sure everybody's working so hard, and everybody's dragging, and the sports department's like, yeah, we do that every night. Every night a Pacer game ends at 10:15, and we've got highlights turned around, and we're on the air at 11. Like, we do it every night. Sports people could just do it. I'm not saying me, but like a Matt Wilkinen, for example, like turning around packages, editing stuff, putting it into the system, and doing it under the biggest of time crunches where you've got like a 30-second margin for error. I loved it. Loved it. And most of those people love it, and you can see it. That's why the Colts have hired, even though he's no longer there, Joe Stolaway from Channel 8 and Matt Wilkinen from 13 and Kevin Connor from Channel 8. They've hired those guys because they're the best at turning things around quickly and seeing through the lens what people don't normally see. So it's great.
Jake's got his feet up on election night on his desk. Enjoy your pizza, you nerds.
That's exactly right. I have always said, and I will say this for the 1,000th time, and I'm telling you right now, people that work in local news, when they hear this, if they work in news, they're like, you know what? He's actually right. And if they work in sports, they're like, hell yeah, he's right. I have always said, you can take any sports person at a TV station and airdrop them into election coverage, and they can do it seamlessly. You take any news person and airdrop them into a sports story, it's a total disaster. Every time. You take them away from the teleprompter, it is a total disaster. You take a sports person and drop them in to cover election results, they're like, give me 30 seconds to read what I need to, and I'll spit it out for 8 minutes. I'm telling you.
Well, we'll do some Derby conversation coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Caleb Keller from FanDuel TV going to join us. If you want to lay down a friendly wager, maybe a more aggressive one, we'll chat about that with him coming up here in a bit. Again, a really nice Friday here in Indianapolis. Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Jake Steve just sent this to us. It's kind of been going around the last 24 hours. I think there was a writer from The Athletic that mentioned how there wasn't, I don't know, a lot of celebrations in the Colts draft room post Anthony Richardson selection. I would beg to differ on that. At the same time, while I think the most important decision makers inside of that building were big fans of wanting Richardson, I don't think, or I should say, I know it was not a universal decision by everyone that you would consider important over there. I think there are some pretty high-ranking people, or I should say at least one high-ranking person that is skeptical of the selection. But yes, I think when you are talking about a Steichen and a Ballard and a Irsay, this is the guy that they wanted.
Those that matter are on board, right?
Yeah, you could probably stop at those three. Certainly when you get a trickle down, there'll be a lot of one-on-one time for Cam Turner, the quarterback's coach. I mentioned this before. Cam Turner worked with Cam Newton in Carolina early on, kind of transitioned eventually over to the quarterback side there, and then a lot with Kyler Murray in Arizona. So a bit of a dual threat background to his nature. And then Jim Bob Cooter, the offensive coordinator, doesn't have a ton of young QB history in his background. He was with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville last year. So that is something that obviously, worked out great for Jacksonville. But, yeah, for the people that are going to be working with him most directly on field, yeah, I think all of them are fans of it. And, I mentioned it in the first hour of the show. Jim Bob Cooter's comments, I thought, on With the Next Pick was exactly how this needs to be viewed of there is tons of potential here, but he always would throw in the caveat of if we do it right, if we build it right, if we make sure the right atmosphere is here, all of that. You have to continue to provide a stable, growing, prospering environment for Richardson, because if you don't, then this is a guy that's not going to get all the way to the top.
Well, then the second variable becomes this, and this probably is just a feel thing, Kevin. But how long do you give a rookie quarterback before you are determined? How long does a rookie quarterback get before you make the determination that you have seen enough to know who he is?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a really difficult one to answer.
I know.
I think there would have been, Jake, there might have been people saying, wait, Peyton Manning threw the most interceptions of any rookie in NFL history? We're bailing on him after year one.
Right. I remember, I was working at the cigar store at that time. So, it was like working at a sports bar. And I can't tell you the number of people that are like, I'm telling you, the Colts should trade Peyton Manning and draft Brian Griese and use the pieces to build around Brian Griese because he was coming out of Michigan. They just won it. Bob Griese connection. There were definitely people, I'm not saying people of influence, but there were definitely fans in Peyton's rookie year that were like, I don't know, man. Mike Vanderjagt into his career, I just don't see it out of him. It was there.
Well, think about after the 6-10 season. That was year 4, right? You go 6-10. That was not the linear sort of. I think a lot of people thought 13-3 in year 2, and then boom, it was smooth sailing from then on out. Obviously, you had a coaching change with Mora to Tony Dungy and everything, but that I think will be the most difficult thing to properly evaluate. Like, what does success look like? What does growth look like? Is it win-loss? Is it completion percentage? Someone made the golf analogy to me yesterday of you hear all this talk about Anthony Richardson in practice settings. Morocco Brown talked about that a lot with the Next Pick series. Is this a guy that just looks good on the driving range, but in games,
right,
his flaws come out? That I think is a real conversation. And I brought up to Zach Kiefer yesterday about what happens fourth quarter game on the line. That's taking it another step further, but those are questions that I don't think you have any sort of proper answer on, and that's why I think you need to play him as early as possible to try and get to that answer sooner rather than later. All right, we'll do some Derby talk coming up here in the 9 o'clock hour. It's a freebie Friday for the pop quiz as well. Kevin and Query right here on 93.5, 107.5.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
9 o'clock hour in Indianapolis. Technically, it's a 9 o'clock hour everywhere in the Eastern time zone. My name is Jake Query. Kevin Bowen here as well. Mark Dykton. It's Kevin and Query on a Friday. How are you? Good-looking Friday. Mini marathon. Matter of fact, I got to crack open another Pedialyte.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
I
a
said
PBR
I
for
thought
a
that,
second.
yeah.
I was like, boy, that's quite the cocktail
Pass
before
that
tomorrow.
this way, sir.
There we go.
Yeah.
You know, I
Where are you
can.
going
I don't know if you know, but I can set records on how fast I can drink this.
Well, I think we should put that to test right now.
This is the.
What flavor?
We really start to. We're going with berry blue.
See, I've tried Pedialyte, and it's too thick. Like I feel
Well,
like
you got to
it's
go
like
with the generic.
It's like a syrup.
This is two things here. We really ramp up our Indy 500 conversation and IndyCar stuff starting next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the weekend of the Miami Grand Prix in Formula One, I believe, right?
That sounds right.
Which means you know what happened on this weekend a year ago.
Boy, do I.
That was when we had the Palabancaro Patrick Mahomes mistake, correct?
Happy anniversary.
Oh, that was great. Paulo Banchero, NBA Rookie of the Year, correct?
Yeah, by a long shot.
Do you think he knows who he is now?
I would hope. I'll never forget one morning, kind of a college morning that I
got to time you. You can't just start. I got to time you.
I had to make a little CVS run in the morning and plopped up a couple of Pedialytes.
Now, you couldn't do that when I was mid-swig. I was about to choke that back up.
Plopped a couple of Pedialytes on the counter, and the older woman behind the counter is like, "Oh, sick young children," and I'm thinking, "Oh boy." She only knew what this headache was right now, and I just smiled and said, "No, not yet."
Rough night, huh?
Pedialyte's probably one of the more interesting products that can be used for all ages.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In trying to get them into better shape.
Feel guilty. You could always say, yes, it is for my children, even if I don't have any children.
Yeah, I don't
Not
know.
halfway through there, Jake.
I wasn't really in a lying state at that point of the morning. Jake dousing a Pedialyte.
Now, does that
currently
do anything for you, doing it faster, or are you just trying to
Gets
show
it
off?
out of the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gets into the veins quicker, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. It does help, though. If you are running the mini marathon tomorrow, and again, Mottman and I are doing it. I don't know that we're going to run the whole thing, but if you are new to it, if you've not done it, if you are planning on running for the majority of it, it is important to hydrate today, and I'm being serious. And I would recommend highly drinking 2 Pedialytes today, and then plenty of water, and that will absolutely facilitate you and reduce your chance of cramping. It's really weird. I've had 2 of the years that I've done it on the final stretch. You get these calf zaps. It's hard to explain, like vit, 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 like back and forth from your left to your right leg, and you're like, oh my gosh. And you feel like your legs are going to lock up. You're like, what do I do now if my legs lock up? It's your quads get super sore from the pounding of the pavement and your knees. It's something. I mean, have either one of you guys ever done it, you said?
No.
No, never.
I'm still rattled about my horse that did the load management thing. Do you think that's what they're talking about in Louisville radio today? For those that missed it, Practical Move was my horse that I was looking forward to putting a nice wager on, and because of an elevated temperature,
yeah, well,
he has been scratched.
He's got a bit of a fever.
I mean, can we not just Motrin, Tylenol? An elevated temp on Wednesday, Thursday, that doesn't mean an elevated temp come race day. Do they have horses on the waiting list?
Not enough Pedialyte. Now,
are there horses on the waiting list?
You mean like alternates?
Yeah, they just slide right in there.
That's a good question. Angel of Empire is going to win.
Yeah, that is my new pick.
Is it? You can't do that. I've already done it.
I already said it earlier in the week. I said my 2 favorite horses were Practical Move and Angel of Empire.
Cyclone Mischief.
I thought you went with like Big Confidence or something. I don't know, something affiliated.
Confidence Game
with your ego.
That describes me in college. Actually, shortly after college. And then there's always a long shot, right? There's always one that
last year we had the once in a generation.
How about Race Cane?
Love the chicken.
Shouldn't that be RACE, Race Cane? I mean, it's a horse race, right? I like Reincarnate, though. You know what? Reincarnate, how about this? You heard it here first.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
The storylines and the headlines and everything else, if on the 50-year anniversary of Secretariat's legendary Triple Crown, Reincarnate comes out and shocks the world and wins the Derby. The Reincarnate of Secretariat 50 years after the fact. Give me Reincarnate. I don't know about to win.
Do you see odds?
50-1. Starting on the outside, you dive down early.
If we're not
get to the rail.
Then what are we picking here?
Win, play, show, buddy. Trifecta.
So, what was your pick then? The 50-1 shot to win it all?
I'm going to pick Reincarnate to, at the very least, show. I don't know if I'm going to go so far as to say win, but I'll bet he shows.
Well, let's pick winners here.
Well, the winner, here's the thing, though. Kevin stole my pick, but I had it first. Angel of Empire is going to win.
Mark, will you pull up the audio from earlier in the week?
How about you guys just share it? It's fine. You can share it, Angel of Empire.
Angel of Empire wins. Cyclone Mischief. Okay, Angel of Empire wins. Reincarnate places, and Cyclone Mischief shows. There you go.
Now you need to put that into a little win show play. See how much money you'd be potentially getting out.
Can you do that?
I'm shocked Jake didn't go with confidence game.
I know I'm a little worried about where you're
you
at right now.
Game earlier this week, which is one of the more disturbing and uncomfortable things you've ever uttered on these
What's
airwaves. That? You said you oozed game.
That is uncomfortable until Mark got the mic about a half hour ago.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Rocket Can. Rocket Can. 33-1. Let's do this.
Colts have announced their 15 undrafted free agents. The big name amongst that group would be Cathedral product and Alabama product Emil Ekiyor. 40 starts at right guard. Jake, this might sound absurd, and we got a long ways to go, but if you're going to list like the 5 rookies that might play the most, I mean, if Emil Ekiyor shows you something, he could take Will Fries' job potentially.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't it feel like if you're a starting lineman for Georgia, Alabama, or like Clemson that you're probably
3-year starter?
Yeah, yeah.
How do you not get drafted?
Totally agree.
And again, the thought was that he was going to get drafted. Wait, do we have Matthew on the line? Mm-hmm. Matthew, you did a little mini action this weekend?
Yes. Good morning, Kevin.
How has your trip been so you got up in Portland, Maine yesterday at the crack of dawn. You flew through Philadelphia from Maine to come to Indianapolis. You are strictly here to soak in all that goes with the mini marathon and for the first time embrace the city that you've adopted as your faraway home, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And I want a full report and breakdown of your trip.
Okay. Portland to Philly wasn't that bad. Had to get up at 2:30 in the morning to leave my house.
That sucks.
I live in central Maine, so that's about 80 miles north of Portland, which is southern Maine. Philadelphia is a massive airport, biggest one I've seen. I've only been in 5 in my life. So.
Okay. Now, so you land in Indy. First place you hit.
Well, our hotels, because we actually checked in early to get that out of the way.
Okay, nap, no nap.
I tried to nap. I got a brief one in.
Okay, sinus congestion from allergies, yes or no?
Yes, it's terrible.
Really?
Okay.
You and Jake need to go to the doctor.
So is this the biggest city you've ever been to?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
The only city I've been
your
to.
overall thoughts on downtown Indianapolis?
It's nice so far. It's
Boy, that wasn't a ringing endorsement.
It has an alarming amount of scooters, which seems a little unnecessary.
Now, I don't know if you know this or not, Matthew, but get a good look at those, because as soon as I become mayor, they're all going on White River. Those and those pedal bars, they're all gone. Okay, lunch or dinner, where have you eaten so far?
My hotel lobby and St. Elmo's are the only places so far.
Oh, well, how was the Continental this morning?
Did you enjoy like an omelet? What'd you have?
I had a sausage, egg biscuit, and oatmeal and coffee.
Shrimp cocktail sauce, yes or no?
Yes, I had it last night. Only cried once.
That's impressive. And you're nervous for the mini, yes or no?
Yes.
You'll be fine.
Well, when you see Jake, slap him on the back tomorrow and tell him to pick up the pace, all right?
That's right.
I have no shot of catching Jake, but we'll see.
Matthew, good luck. Safe travels. Glad that you are getting a taste of Indy here in the month of May on that. And what is the number? 30,000 tomorrow? Is that
it used
too
to be
high?
30,000. I don't know if they've gotten it back up to that coming off of. I think it is about 30 though. Matthew, you'll be fine. Enjoy it. That's the big thing. Just have fun with it. There's all the sentences are going on. It's awesome.
We'll have some Derby conversation here in just a few minutes. Caleb Keller from FanDuel going to join us, give out a pick. How does it work, Jake? You tow the starting line with like a certain pack? I assume you're not in the lead pack?
Oh, no. What I always do is I skip up to the lead corral, and then they start, you get going, and you're running with like college runners and the elite level runners, so you got no choice but to keep the pace up till you hit about the zoo, and then at that point I usually hit the portalette because I've had like 9 Red Bulls in the morning. Excuse me.
What?
Well, you drink a lot of water,
Sounds like
so you're
Butler basketball team.
You're hydrating a lot, right?
There.
You're not going. It's not Bobby Hurley in the Final Four.
Are you one of those where you're waiting for the porta potty, but you're still running in place? I gotta keep the speed up. Gotta keep going.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, and then you kind of blend back in, and then at that point you're kind of a mix. The real depressing thing is when you start looking at people's corrals. You're like, wait a minute, that guy just passed me and he's corral X. That means he started in the very back. But it's fun. I'm telling you, like, it's cool. But tomorrow is really just about staying moving. I'm not, quite frankly, and I'm not making excuses here, I'm being completely honest. Just with all the schoolwork and stuff, my daily gym routine is way off of what it was even a year ago. So be back on the swing of that next year, but I just was too tied up for the most part for the last 3-4 months.
Well, it didn't sound like it on that final paper that you turned in.
Yeah, well, you know what? I got news for you.
Easy now.
The little teaching instructor.
Oh, boy. You want to make sure you're walking on Wednesday here. Come on now. I don't want any last minute. Let's take off Jason Lloyd Query.
They called me yesterday to do an article for like some publication. I don't know where it is, but the marketing department called me, so they got no choice now. And I was very nice about the writing instructor that gave me that said I'm a poor writer. I was like, that's cool. I'm fine.
Clearly didn't bother you.
No, not at all. Hasn't kept you up at night at all.
I'm a little bit competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Jake graduating coming up on Wednesday, as we said earlier in the week. Kenny Moore graduating from Valdosta State coming up this weekend. So obviously a popular time of year for graduates all around the United States. And after the mini coming up tomorrow, it'll be the Grand Prix next Saturday afternoon. What's that, Jake? Like a 3:30 start time? 3 o'clock, something like that? The GMR Grand Prix.
I'm looking up there. I think that 3:30 sounds right.
And then obviously quals the weekend after that. And it's the same qualifying format as last year?
Yes, that is correct.
So we'll bump one car and then the Fast 12. And I think how the qualifying Sunday will work is, again, you'll slot in whatever it is, spots 13 to 30. Yeah, 13 to 30 on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you'll slot in the top 4 rows and then bump one car. And we'll obviously talk a whole lot more about that. Doug Bull's going to join us every Monday here during the month of May.
By the way, 3:30 is correct for the GMR Grand Prix.
All right, let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. We got to get more into the Derby, lay down some wagers. Caleb Keller from FanDuel TV joins us. Caleb, good morning. Good Oaks Day to you, if that makes sense at all.
Thank you. Just got here. Everybody's dressed up and got their colors on to enjoy this day. And, of course, the biggest race coming up tomorrow. But Oaks has got a lot of personality to it over the years. And got a group of fillies going later on, and we're looking forward to it.
Okay, weather-wise, it looks like a pretty good Friday and Saturday. So from a betting standpoint, does that mean the fast pacers are people we need to keep an eye on?
I think so, at least in terms of today. The favorite, Wet Paint, whether it rained or didn't, I think she was going to be in a pretty good spot. So I don't think that anybody was really expecting any rain. There was a chance that maybe tomorrow morning early there could be a little bit of rain, but by the time race day comes around, I hope for a sunny, fast track.
You know, so Forte is, I believe, the odds-on favorite. There have been years, Caleb, with the Kentucky Derby where there was one horse that just appears to be, you know, where people are like, this is it. This is the one that could be the next Secretariat, the next Seattle Slew, the next Cigar, whatever. I haven't heard as much discussion about that this year, but maybe I just haven't been paying enough attention. Is Forte like the clear-cut, can't miss, or is this a pretty open field?
I don't think that you're going to see a horse to that level. And one thing about all the Triple Crown winners is that they were all coming to Louisville as clearly the absolute one to beat, and there was no question about it. So, you know, for Forte, he's got the class to be able to win this. Very similar to Nyquist. He was the 2-year-old champ that has maintained the crown. But in terms of a Triple Crown opportunity for Forte, Todd Pletcher never really wants to run in the second leg of the Triple Crown of the Preakness. He kind of only goes there if he has to, like he did with both of his Derby winners that didn't really fire at all. So Pletcher's not really a guy that even looks at the second jewel of the Triple Crown. He tries for the Derby, and then he excels in the third leg, the Belmont. So I'd have a tough time seeing it this year, at least from him.
This is kind of going off on a tangent, but I remember this last year, and obviously it was a huge upset. But do you think, Caleb, we should get to a point where you almost kind of sign up for if you are doing the Derby and you win, you have to do the Preakness and the Belmont?
Not really, because, I mean, Eric Reed set a new precedent last year where, you know, he won with Rich Strike, came out of nowhere, and then he opted out of the Preakness, which has been a long, long, long time since a Derby winner's not run. So you can't force it, because in typical horse racing these days, I mean, these horses are more on a 4 to 5 to 6 week schedule, whereas, you know, they've kept for 100 plus years the 2-week spacing between the Derby and the Preakness, and that's after you just ran the race of your life. So the 2 weeks was way more common 100 years ago, but with horses racing more sparingly, it's a real big ask to come back in just 2 weeks.
Caleb, when I ask this question, I'm granting you permission to then, when you get around horse racing people, to say, listen to what this total moron in Indianapolis asked me today, okay? When the horses are brought to Louisville, are they transported strictly by ground? Because is there any detriment to being like in the cabin pressure of an airplane when they are transported? Are there special conditions of transport that are made that are thought to be the most advantageous for the physical condition of the horse?
There, absolutely. I mean, the way that they fly horses these days, it's very amazing. You know, the first thing they do is they simulate a stall. So they're going to have somewhat of the same dimensions, maybe a little bit tighter, but they're going to have hay around, they're going to have soft bedding, and they're also going to have companions. You know, horses are companion animals, so rarely would they ever just fly a horse by themselves. So, you know, you put these horses in there, they've been trained well, they've been broken early in their career, and when you put them onto, you know, what is a simulated stall with some friends next door that they can kind of rub their noses against, it's a pretty seamless move. Some horses also do travel in by van. You know, there's a handful of horses that came over from Lexington, which is only about an hour trip down 64, and they can come over by van. But if you think about it, I mean, going back to, let's say, like the 1930s with Seabiscuit, I mean, these horses were traveling on train to get, you know, from New York to California. So the shipping that they do is pretty amazing. And for the most part, I rarely hear of any hiccup for a horse making travel on a plane.
Okay, my other question is, like in auto racing, which is what people in Indianapolis obviously can relate to when it comes to big races, there are different tracks change in the weather condition. Now, that doesn't affect, you know, some drivers like to run, if it's a road and street course, they say they like rain. I don't believe that anybody does, but things do change. Is there a horse in this particular field of the Kentucky Derby that is more track condition sensitive than others, or which horse is the safest, most reliable prediction regardless of what weather is going to be, and which one is looking closest at the forecast?
Well, I think that Confidence Game is a horse that's getting some buzz, and Confidence Game's coming in off the longest layoff. In my mind, the only chance that he would have had to win this race is if it was raining. You know, his sire was a horse that loved the mud, and his last race, you know, horses can, in my mind, a horse can get up to 5 lengths better on the slop, and they can also very easily get 5 lengths worse on the slop. So I don't really compare apples to oranges. I look at fast track racing and wet track racing as separate entities. And one thing's for sure, when you go to a fast to a wet track, rarely do you give the same performance. you're either going to get a little bit better or a lot better or a little bit worse and a lot worse. So it's very night and day in my mind. So Confidence Game is a horse that people are buzzing about, but in my mind, with the rain not coming, I got a tough time seeing it. I thought that he was probably rain dependent. And then, you look at Forte. He doesn't have a lot of experience over the wet ground, and I think that he would prefer the fast track for the favorite, and that looks like it's what he's going to get.
Okay, Caleb Keller here, FanDuel TV, joins us now. You can follow him on Twitter. It's at CalebFDTV. The info speaks for itself. I try to predict which horse will run in a circle the fastest. Simple, effective. I love that, Caleb. Okay, I'm going to give you $10. How are you spending that $10 from a betting standpoint on the Derby? And then I will ask you how you would spend $100 from a betting standpoint on the Derby. So let's start with the $10 portion.
Okay, let's go $5 to win in place on Angel of Empire. He's the one that I feel the best about to run his race. He's a horse that I saw in early January, and I just think that he has the most stamina in the field, and he's got a really nice move around the turn. He's trained by the biggest rising star in all of horse racing, Brad Cox. Brad Cox, his home base is right here at Churchill, and he's got the perfect jockey in Flavian Pratt. Flavian, when he's great at reading the pace, he reminds me of one of those great early 1990s jockeys, your Gary Stevens and DeSormos of the world that really have that internal clock, and they don't have any panic. And horses can sense nerves when a jockey gets on top of them. And when Flavian gets aboard, he's very, very calm. And Angel of Empire has been the most calm horse all week. Forte showing great body language. He's showing so much energy, but that could backfire a little bit with 100,000 people when he's got this nervous energy that he's waiting to get to the gate. The Japanese horse has been good, but he's very curious. He looks around at a lot of things, whereas Angel of Empire just comes out there so focused, so calm, doing anything the handler needs. So $5 to win in place for the $10 bet, I feel like it's going to be my best bet.
Okay, and then how about the $100 pool?
Okay, so for the $100 pool, let's keep Angel of Empire in first and second, and let's take some more money to wheel the trifecta. And I think that some horses to get into that trifecta, I think that King's Barnes is underrated. He is very lightly raced, but he's got a sneaky, relaxing mode. He's got the speed to make the lead, but I think in this race he's going to very calmly sit back and be in a striking position, and he just waits on his cues. And this is another horse that carries zero stress. When you got 140,000 people, when you got a talented horse that runs calmly or has no stress, that's big key. So I'm going to put King's Barnes in this trifecta wheel. I'm also going to put Skinner. Skinner's the guy that looks like he can really run.
About Skinner.
He can run all day. Those are a couple long shots. And then, I'll get the favorites in there as well. Forte, it's tough for Forte when you're a 2-year-old champion because you're maintaining the crowd. A lot of these other horses are ascending up the ladder, whereas he's been the king of the jungle since going back to last October. And then he had it through November. And then he was the 2-year-old champion. And then he came out this year and he won twice again. So, he's maintained that crown beautifully, but this is the toughest field that he's faced. So, I can still see Forte running a big race, but maybe not winning. But the key here for this trifecta, again, Angel of Empire in first and second, and I want to get Skinner, the 9-horse, in there, and King's Barnes as well. I think those two have got a great chance of hitting this trifecta.
Okay, Caleb, here's the thing, and I hope I shouldn't have said this to you off the top because you might have gotten a little nervous. What you're dealing with here is 3 guys that make up the 17th rated mid-market morning radio show in the United States.
I don't even know for that, huh?
Yes.
So as a result of that, we've got to ask about Hit Show. That I don't know if that's named for us or not, but does Hit Show have any chance?
I think he does because he's.
You got to be careful when you say the name, by the way, on radio. But Hit Show.
He also goes after the same trainer as Angel of Empire for Brad Cox. Anything's possible with Brad. I think Brad Cox is going to be, the new rising star. Not rising star. He's going to be the star of American dirt racing over the next 10 years. And the thing about Hit Show, in 5 of his races, all 5 starts, he's been the favorite. And now in this race, he's going to be a big long shot. And then if you look at his last race, he broke from all the way outside 13 out of 13 and had a bad trip. This race, he breaks from the 1, which a lot of people think that's a bad post. I don't really, because he's going to save the ground. He won't be wide. He's not going to bid for the early lead. And his mom got better with time, actress. And his dad is my favorite sire, Candy Ride. So I love the pedigree. I love the fact that he's been the favorite all 5 times, and now he's going to be a big old price. And I also really like the fact that he was so wide last time, and this time he should save the most ground in the field.
Okay, then lastly, the one that I'm telling you right now, Caleb, and who am I to tell you here? Reincarnate. I'm telling you, 50th anniversary of Secretariat. You see the headlines now. It's a reincarnation of Secretariat's dominance. 50-1, comes from the outside, gets to the rail, wins the race. Am I out of my mind?
Now, I will say this about Secretariat with this 50th anniversary. We just picked up the commemorative Woodford Reserve bottle, which is one of my favorite commemorative bottles. It's just beautiful with him in the winner's circle. I think they got a 50th anniversary stamp my family's looking to get, but we're collecting all the Secretariat swag here for the 50th. The one thing I will say about Reincarnate, and I don't think I can buy him on the win. I do think, though, that they're going to press out and maybe try to find the lead. He's got a constant rhythm, but he doesn't necessarily have a big burst. Like he's not gonna come along with a burst late or a big burst sometimes early. So, in talking to the jockey and watching his last workout where they worked him pretty fast, I get the sense he's going to make a big impact on this race. I do see him winging out there, maybe even being the horse that's leading the race. Now, that would be a brave trip to try to go the whole way. I think that best case scenario might be, I don't want to talk you off a 50-1 shot, but it might be, second, third, or fourth might be his best. But one thing I will say, if you are going to bet him at 50-1, your number's going to get called early because I think from what I've seen in the workout and what I've heard from the jockey, they're going to press out of the gate, and they might even lead this thing into the first turn.
I'm telling you.
Gosh, I am
shocked the world, baby.
I am so confident after listening to Caleb. Caleb, thank you for that. Again, Caleb Keller. That is at Caleb FDTV on Twitter. And just one final time, you said wet paint. That's where we're going for the Oaks.
Okay, so today I do like wet paint and South Lawn, but let me give you a long shot today in the Oaks too with those horses, and that's going to be the Alice Look from the two post. This is a horse that was very, very wide last time, a sneaky bad trip. She finished third. It didn't look that great, but two things are about her. Number one, the Alice Look needs to be in contention early, and she got the two post with an aggressive jockey. Asking her to win the race might be a little bit too much. The favorites look great. Wet Paint and Southline, I think they're both going to run their race, but I'm going to mix in the Alice Look there to try to boost up this trifecta a little bit today.
Nothing like a bad trip, right?
Hey, I'm telling you, when you get the bad trips, you get the good prices next. You get a bad result, but you have better prices and odds going into the next race for a good trip, hopefully.
I thought the Pacers bet was easy and Max was set for life. Boy, now all of a sudden, Max and Rosie are both set for life here after these bets. Caleb, thank you, man. Enjoy the great weather. Have a blast this weekend.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Caleb Keller on the Payless Liquors hotline. For those that missed any of that, check it out on the podcast. We'll rehash it one more time before we end the show. Pop quiz coming up in a few. That is a Freebie Friday Jiffy Lube oil change coming your way. So 317-239-1070 on that. Let's do a morning checkdown.
The morning checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We'll begin with Major League Baseball. Nationals over the Cubs yesterday 4-3. It was Atlanta doubling up the Marlins 6-3. St. Louis Cardinals have now dropped 6 straight. They lost 11-7 to the L.A. Angels. Twins over the White Sox 7-3. Cute Bella over Kansas City 13-10. Indianapolis Indians 5-2 winners yesterday over the Mud Hens of Toledo.
Last night in the association, the Warriors evened it up at 1-1. Big second and third quarters from Golden State. It was a 27-point win, so very similar to what we saw from Philly and Boston the night before. So, Jake, as we head into the weekend, now all the series will shift to the first, road venue. We have 3 series at 1-1, 1 at 2-0. That will be the Suns and the Nuggets tonight. The Nuggets lead 2-0 as Phoenix gets a taste of that series. And then Philly and Boston at 7:30. You surprised at all? Boston a slight road favorite in that one?
No, because I think Boston is the better team. They've got to get Joel Embiid going, though. Philadelphia does. I realize he was coming off injury. But big one for Philly. If Boston wins that game, I think it's going to be tough. Takes home court back. I think Boston's going to win the whole thing, but big one for Philly tonight.
And then looking ahead to Saturday, Knicks and Heat at 3:30 from Miami. That series tied at 1-1. Of course, the Jimmy Butler injury, big to watch there. And then tomorrow night, we will get Lakers and Warriors. That is an 8:30 tip from the Staples Center.
All right. Freebie Friday pop quiz, right, Kev?
Yes, sir. 317-239-1070.
Are you
5 and 107.5. The Fan. Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, Kev, Derby weekend. Do you have a number for me for the Pop Quiz between 1 and 8?
Well, it seemed like Caleb right there, Caleb Keller, FanDuel TV, was outstanding just now in the Derby. He seemed very confident in the, the two-post here in the Oaks. The Alice Look, I believe so. So let's go with numero dos.
Don.
Hey, good morning, fellas.
Don, good morning. You a Derby fan?
Yeah, I've watched it for years and years.
Are you going to put any money down?
Nah, the best thing for me to do when I'm betting is not to bet. I make money that way.
Oh, there you go. Or at least you don't flush it down the toilet, right?
I like that, Don. You're a smart fella. Don, you sound like a nice guy. If you don't mind me asking, can we play a little round to get to know your listener? We've had a lot of success with this.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Don, you are a native of Indianapolis, yes or no?
Yes, born and raised.
Okay. And then when you were in high school, did you play sports in high school?
No, God didn't gift me, but I like playing basketball, and I hated to lose.
Okay.
I wasn't good enough to play in the varsity.
Well, had you played varsity, your jersey would have had what mascot on it, like Rockets or Titans or Panthers? What school?
Oh, it was Patriots, John Marshall.
John Marshall. Okay. Have you called the program before it, Don?
I was on last Friday.
That's right. Okay.
Oh, look at that. Friday special, Don.
I got lucky.
From now on, Don, we're just going to call you Don Marshall. Does that work?
That's okay.
Okay.
Don, you got oil changes for years now.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, I got 2 cars, so it'll work out for me.
What kind of cars are you driving around in, Don?
I've got a PT Cruiser convertible, and I'm driving a Toyota, I always want to say Altima, but that's not right, Avalon.
Now, are you a married guy?
Yes.
I was going to say, do you ever just drive around in the PT Cruiser and try to pick up chicks? But I guess you can't do that now, right?
Well, I told you the last time I'll be 67 in June, but I still think I'm in my 20s.
There you go.
Attaboy.
I was hoping he's going to be like, well, we're in an open relationship, so yeah, we are totally good.
All right, Don. Don, would you like for me, that would be Jake, or for Kevin to lead you off with question number 1?
I had Kev last time, so let's do Jake.
All right, here we go, Don. Question number 1. Mike Budenholzer is out as the Bucs head coach. With that firing, there are just 3 NBA head coaches who have won championships with the team that they are currently coaching. Which of the following has not won a championship with his current team? Is it A, Steve Kerr, B, Eric Spoelstra, C, Greg Popovich, or D, Nick Nurse?
I'll go with D.
What have I told you? Did you say D as in dog?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Good call. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, number 2 here, Don. Who has served as head coach for the most different franchises in his NBA career? Is it A, Lenny Wilkens, B, George Karl, C, Larry Brown, or D, one of my great childhood friends, Kevin Lockery?
Well, man, that's
I think most recently with Penny Hardaway, this guy, at Memphis. And I believe Mike Woodson tried to hire him.
Donnie Walsh once said of this guy, he's only happy when he's miserable.
Oh, that's George Karl.
Okay, question 3. Every team has lost at least one game in this year's NBA playoffs. No team has made it through the NBA postseason undefeated. But which team has the best record in a single NBA postseason? A, the 0-1 Lakers. B, the 2017 Golden State Warriors. C, the 83 76ers. Or D, the 91 Chicago Bulls.
Jeez. That's a tough group there. I guess I go with the... What was the second choice again?
That would be the 2017 Golden State Warriors.
Smart.
I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, valedictorian. at John Marshall here. Don joining us. Number 4 here. No NHL team has swept the playoffs since the 1967 expansion, extended the postseason to more than 2 rounds. Name the last original 6 team to finish the NHL postseason with an 8-0 record. Was it the 60 Canadiens, the 63 Maple Leafs, the 52 Red Wings, or the 44 Canadiens?
My God.
Yeah, in other words, this is Scotty saying, here's my middle finger.
Yeah, thank you, Scotty. I appreciate that, brother. Oh, man. Let's go with number 3. I have no idea.
Red Wings?
Yeah. Unless you got a hint.
Well, I was going to say maybe a little north of the border. I know that doesn't narrow it down. Don't they speak French in this province?
Give me the choices again.
The 60 Canadians. Was it the 60 Canadians or the 44 Canadians? Don, just say the 60 Canadians.
60 Canadians.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, of course.
Last one for you, Don. Which of these 4 positions did John Marshall never actually hold?
Oh.
Chief Justice of the United States, 4th United States Secretary of State, Governor of Virginia, or member of the U.S. House of Representatives?
Wow. Well, that's a good one there. Shoot.
Well, I'll tell you this. It was actually Governor of Virginia. He was not that, but he did hold a position in all 3 branches of government. Your actual question, final question here, is about horse racing because it is Derby weekend. So here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Secretariat, that is the greatest racehorse to ever live, and I will throw anybody down a flight of stairs that says otherwise. 50 years ago today, Secretariat started his record march to the Triple Crown by winning the Kentucky Derby. He had 21 starts in his racing career. How many times did he finish outside of the money? That means how many times did he not finish in the top 3? A, never. B, once, and it happened to be in his very first race, and then after that he was unbelievable. C, twice, or D, 3 times?
I'm going to go with once.
Okay.
He is a great, great horse.
Isn't it kind of a non-debate, right? Do people really think Secretary's not the greatest?
Oh, I think there are some that would say Man of War. Some might say Seabiscuit. Man of War is probably the one that would be most often listed. Man of War, I believe, lost 1 race. Do you know who?
Seattle Slew.
Upset.
Look at that.
That's the origin of the term.
Just 2 Triple Crown winners, right, since Secretariat, Scotty?
Well, Seattle Slew, and didn't Cigar win it?
Yeah. Not Cigar.
Did Slew win it in 79?
78.
What was the one, Brown something?
Big Brown did not. It wasn't American Pharaoh.
American Pharaoh did.
And,
American Pharaoh did. There were like 2 and 3 years, right?
Yeah, Justify. I think it was Justify. All right, Don, stay on the line. Good work. Nick Nurse, correct on number 1.
That is correct.
What do you get right? He got 3 right, he got 4 right, and he got 5 right there. A-D-D-A-I, a die,
no,
die.
Yeah, okay. Now, here's the thing. I'm with Kevin on this.
Whoa.
Anytime that Kevin or myself have an audio hiccup, Mark is just all about running around Meridian Street and parading around the circle, playing the audio of our hiccups. You had arguably, and I've been on this show now for 19 months, something like that, right? When I joined the circuit.
Feels like 5 years.
In the 19 months that I've done it, without question, we had the biggest toe of the line of an FCC violation, and without any doubt whatsoever, a euphemism of the most immature stature that came out of the lips of you, Mark Dykton, and yet we haven't heard it since. Now, why would that be? Is it because of the violation, or is it embarrassment? I think the latter.
I got a cramp again.
Bottom 5. And
Bottom, come rub this one out of me.
Excuse me?
I believe that's it right there that you're referring to.
I hate to.
I'll wear it. No
I hate
problem.
to say this, but I feel like the reason why we won't hear it is because Jake nor I are very technologically savvy to go back and edit that bit.
I just pulled it.
Nor do we have the audio capabilities on these computers over here to play that on air. But yeah, Mark, that was certainly not one of our finer moments. Jake, number 2, the Donnie Walsh hint did not land.
It is Larry Brown. Larry Brown, who has coached for 9 NBA franchises.
Don, have a great weekend, man.
I believe he's right on everything else. Right?
You don't get to come back tomorrow. You don't even get allowed to copy of our home
It is beautiful outside.
You're a complete loser.
I'm blowing Mark.
43.
Static here.
Easy.
Yeah, no. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
Where did that come from?
What are we doing here? We've already got the FCC and HR sitting right outside, and then you just go ahead.
Hello, folks. No one's here on a Friday. What are you talking
well,
about?
that's a good point. Nobody's listening anyway. What did we just...
I had a great transition set up for the last segment, and then Mark just goes there.
They just did the radio rankings, and I think actually we just slid down. We're now behind Janesville and just in front of Valdosta, right?
Oh, Kenny Moore will be there graduating this weekend. Speaking of ADDAI, we do have some numbers out for the rookies, and a local product has decided maybe to go with the Joseph Adai reference there. We'll explain, and we'll try to keep it PG to round it out.
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Before we get to the Colts numbers assignment, I would like to make a proclamation, if I could, please.
Probably might get a little Old Kentucky home there, Mark.
I do love my Old Kentucky home when they play that. I am aware of the fact that today is Cinco de Mayo, and I'm aware of the fun game that people play of taking a picture of a thing of mayonnaise in a sink to recognize it. I'm also aware of the fact that to be good sports and as basically what I'm known as, which is a totally humble team player, I participated in your guys' little mayonnaise and the coffee game in honor of Will Levis potentially being drafted by the Colts.
Right. Uh-huh.
But he was not drafted.
The sacrifice to get him out of here.
Yeah, that's right. He was not drafted by the Colts, and I partook in your guys' little reindeer games. So as a result of that, I'm aware of the fact that mayonnaise is part of the Cinco de Mayo thing, but people can quit sending that to me now because I'm already a little congested. I don't need to add nausea to the issue, and mayonnaise is the most disgusting thing on the planet.
I think this could be the trick to get you moving like Usain Bolt tomorrow. Steve Prefontaine.
If you were to have mayonnaise behind me, that would be correct. Okay. It would be no issue whatsoever. It would be the best mini I've ever run.
29,999 people carrying mayonnaise, and Jake Berry running for his life.
It is the most disgusting thing on the planet.
We've got numbers announced for the Colts rookies. We knew Anthony Richardson 5 for jersey number there. Scotty, who'd we say? Drew Stanton, Josh Freeman was the last Colts that have worn 5. Blair Keel at the quarterback position. Josh Downs told us earlier today, if you missed that, that's up on the podcast, that he will be number 1. Paris Campbell exits, fittingly, the slot receiver. Josh Downs, the number 1. And Juju Brent, his favorite Colts, Bob Sanders, I believe. Zach Moss is wearing 21. How's 29 for a cornerback number, Jake?
I'm trying to think of the last guy to wear. What was Malik Hooker?
Boy, was Hooker 29? I think he was. Marlon was 28, right?
To me,
Kelvin Hayden 26.
I will say that when I see 29 for the Colts, I still go Eric Dickerson.
Yeah. Me, a little bit more modern.
I'm old.
I do go a die.
But he was a great player. I mean, you know what I mean? He was a Hall of Fame player. It was just so bizarre, Kevin, to all of a sudden have Scotty, I think, will back me up here. In the first year that Dickerson came here, for a franchise that had been toiled in total anonymity and mediocrity since their move, and suddenly to know that the biggest superstar in the NFL was playing here was literally the most bizarre thing ever. It was just like, I can't believe they're like Eric Dickerson plays in Indianapolis. It was the splash Jim Irsay was looking for sure.
Finally on Monday Night Football, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I like this one here. Jake Witt is going to wear 76. Joe Wrights wore 76. Of course, the directional school in Michigan basketball background to both of those storylines on that front.
76 is perfect because 76 is kind of the number of America, right? The 76ers, 1776. And there's nothing more Americana than Jake's Witt. So that's perfect for...
In my opinion,
we almost made it. We were so close.
What are you talking about?
I was kind of hoping we get out of here a little bit earlier today.
People say that to me all the time. When I go out in public, that's the first thing they say to me. They come up and they say, I enjoy your program because of your wit. That's the number one thing that I'm told.
So we had Caleb Keller on earlier.
Right? You know what it is? They're totally wit it.
To talk the Derby. For those
in my opinion, that sucked.
Now.
For those that missed it, Caleb shared with us his Oaks picks, which is today's race. Wet Paint, Southmont, and the Alice Look. Those were the 3 he likes. For the Derby, he is a big Angel of Empire fan. Big Angel of Empire fan, as am I. Win or place. He said if you got $10 to throw down, put 5 on the win, 5 on the place. And then if you got the old $100-bucker to throw down somewhere, Angel of Empire, Kings, Barnes, and Skinner. That trifecta. He did not like the body language of Forte, he said. Horse body language. In front of 100-some thousand. I guess that, I could laugh at that, but I guess that does make sense.
Reincarnate now 16-1, moved up from 50-1 to 16-1. Largely probably due to the power of this program, right?
They do always say, like, if you see like a horse ahead of the race, like trotting around and like tossing its head back and forth, like the nerves have gotten to it. So avoid it. So maybe that's what he.
I feel like there's always that one horse as they all get into the stall or get into the whatever that gate is called.
Private Smiles in the 73 Belmont, the famous, since we're talking about Secretariat, Private Smiles was the one that nickered and was fussy going into the starting gates.
Yeah, there's always that one.
You know, it's interesting. If you look at the 73 Belmont, there were only 5. I think there were 5 horses in that race. 5. Because people are like, what are we doing here? Who wants to run for second, right?
Well, right there, that just proves that Tiger's 2000 U.S. Open is more dominant. Tiger had to beat 150
That's
humans.
right.
Belmont had to beat, or Secretariat had to beat 4 horses.
When they went into the turn and Sham's jockey had been instructed for the first time, run with Secretariat, wear him down. And Ronnie Turcotte said they went into 1, and Secretariat literally could feel that Sham was next to him and just said, all right, it's over. And what is impressive about Secretariat's Belmont run, he ran each quarter mile faster than the previous. His final quarter mile in that run was faster than was the fastest quarter mile he ran in that race. And it is the most unbelievable. I can't imagine that any horse in my lifetime, which, you know, I mean, maybe like another 6 months, that any horse will ever duplicate that. But I'm sure people, you know, thought that no one would ever see another Man of War. I get it. It's all relative.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Weather cooperates. Hope the cramps cooperate.
We'll see,
I guess
right?
the allergies right now is what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But good luck to everybody out there. What an awesome day. Everybody enjoy the mini. Enjoy the weekend. The month of May is alive and